Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, it gives me great pleasure to kick off the fifth UfM Regional Forum and the celebrations of the 25th anniversary of the Barcelona process. With this remarkable gathering of the Euro-Mediterranean civil society, indeed, since 1995, the contribution of civil society has been recognized as fundamental in the process of development of Euro-Mediterranean partnership as an essential factor for greater understanding and people-to-people cooperation in our dear Mare Nostrum. The impulse given by the Barcelona process to civil society across the region has been significant and give an important space for CSOs to add their voice to the framework of debate and cooperation offered by the new Euro-Mediterranean partnership. Later on, the Union for the Mediterranean reaffirmed the political will of the Euro-Mediterranean partners to strengthen their cooperation through the incorporation of more relevance, visibility, and concrete impact for the citizens of the region. Allow me to convey my warmest gratitude to our dear partners, without whom this great mobilization would not have been possible, namely the European Commission, the ANI CBC Med program, the Aniline Foundation, as well as the North-South Center for the Council of Europe, and of course, IC. Through our joint collaboration, we have strived to make this celebration as vibrant and dynamic as possible, despite the current context limitations. Indeed, if you navigate around the event platform, you will discover the virtual exhibition space developed to showcase successful civil society initiatives that have addressed key challenges across the Euro-Mediterranean, going from water, environment, climate change, to job creation, local development, and of course, women and youth empowerment. The reality of the Mediterranean region is one where conditions of fragility and exposure are extremely concentrated. Therefore, it seemed pivotal for us to give the spotlight during this forum to those projects and initiatives that tackle these pressing issues on the ground, and that give us hope and trust. Dear friends and colleagues, the Mediterranean region has been suffering for years of many negative echoes throughout the headlines. Us Mediterranean enthusiasts that fight every day for a future that we can and we will create for the next generation to come can sometimes feel tired of the gloomy reaction towards our shared region. So today, we invite you to reflect on how the people of the Mediterranean have always showed great resilience and how they joined hands throughout the years to make our region a more peaceful, stable, and prosperous one. We invite you to celebrate our success and build together the ground for even stronger cooperation initiatives and projects in the years to come. Let our shared belief in your and our dynamic, creative, and vibrant Euro-Mediterranean region be the compass for a brighter future. Thank you very much. And now I leave the floor for the message from my dear colleague, Commissioner Oliver Varelli, the EU Commissioner for Neighbourhood and Enlargement. Thank you very much.
Dear civil society representatives, dear guests, we are celebrating the 25th anniversary of the Barcelona process with a series of events that unfortunately have to be held largely online. I would have much preferred to see you all in person. The Mediterranean region has always been of strategic importance for the European Union. This was reconfirmed by the creation of the Union for the Mediterranean 25 years ago, an important regional body which enables the dialogue of countries from both shores of the Mediterranean on issues of common concern. It also promotes the cooperation of the European Union and its member states with our southern neighbors. Today's event is celebrating not only the Barcelona process, but also the important role of the civil society in this dialogue. And with civil society, I mean both large and small actors, from organizations like Aniline Foundation to NGOs that work on the ground and in their communities. We support a number of them. For example, a small Libyan NGO, Al Mizan Lil Tanmia, the Balance for Development, works for women, especially from remote places, to help them develop their business ideas, improve their sales and products. Or a Moroccan Bel Kira Association for Heritage Conservation that works on improved access to health and revival of economic activity during the COVID-19 pandemic. The European Union works with civil society in different ways, as development and governance actors in their own right, as a driver of reform and change, as well as partners in the region, fostering peace and conflict resolution. The challenges in the southern Mediterranean are many. Political instability in parts of the region is stoking conflicts and social unrest. Socioeconomic inequality is creating tensions and degrading the living conditions for the marginalized. Climate change has a tangible impact, endangering livelihoods of millions of people. The COVID-19 pandemic additionally intensified these challenges. Civil societies have to be part of the solution. Engagement with civil society is essential. Guaranteeing a safe space for open public debate and ensuring fundamental freedoms is one of the drivers for sustainable development. This remains an important element in the EU's cooperation with the South. We have a structured dialogue with the civil societies from the southern neighborhood under the project called Mahalat, meaning dialogue, funded by the Commission. This project was presented yesterday among the 25 civil society initiatives that we are very proud of. During our next long-term budget, the European Commission will continue to support civil society in our partner countries to allow them to contribute to inclusive economic development, protection of the environment, and thriving communities. We are also thinking about ways to inject new ideas and dynamic in our relations with the region, and I would be interested to hear your views. In the meantime, I wish you a very interesting discussion today and look forward to its outcome.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are, because I think we have a worldwide audience here. At the outset of our meeting on civil society, 25 years after the start of the Barcelona process. Now, when a human being becomes 25, then by all means you can argue it's a grown up. No longer a child, no longer a baby, no longer an adolescent. But a person that has gone through 25 years has gone through many different stages of evolution, many experiences, and things have changed. Views have changed, taste has changed, character has evolved. And I think this little analogy is something we could keep in mind when speaking about civil society today. 25 years is a long time. 25 years for many of us who are listening today and discussing actually this afternoon has been a period where the Barcelona process, the Euro-Mediterranean partnership, the European neighborhood policy, the togetherness in the European Mediterranean space has become an important element for our own biographies. It's not simply a research subject. It's something we have lived. You live in Arab countries, in Turkey, Israel, and many other countries in the region, we in the north of the Mediterranean. Actually, if you allow me to say so, I am a senior official in the European Commission, and it was the Barcelona process that made me enter this job. I applied for the European Commission because I wanted to be part of those who construe a new living together around the Mediterranean. Now, I'm very, very glad that these 25 years meetings start with a big focus on civil society. This is not necessarily obvious because obviously the whole thing started at the end of November, almost by the day, 25 years ago, with a foreign ministers meeting. But even at that time, foreign ministers were not on their own. The meeting in Barcelona at the time was accompanied and even preceded by a big civil society forum. And actually, I took the occasion to look into my copy of the Barcelona Declaration. And I was very happy to see that we find in that Barcelona Declaration many references to civil society, but also to the values and the objectives of work of civil society. We find wording on the respect to ensure diversity, pluralism in the societies, promote tolerance between different groups in society, and combat manifestations of intolerance, racism, and xenophobia, and the role of education and culture in that matter. We find a specific section on civil society actually in the part on social, cultural, and human affairs. And I would like to quote, "The participants recognize the essential contribution civil society can make in the process of development of the Euro-Mediterranean partnership and as an essential factor of greater understanding and closeness between peoples. They accordingly agree to strengthen and or to introduce the necessary instruments of decentralized cooperation to encourage exchanges between those active in development within the framework of national law, leaders of political and civil society, the cultural and religious world, universities, the research community, the media, organizations, the trade unions, and public and private enterprises. And on this basis, they recognize the importance of encouraging contacts and exchanges between young people in the context of programs for decentralized cooperation." You see, some of these things are still very much up to date today. It has been a problem since the start of the Barcelona process to define what this baby is that we're talking about, civil society. And actually, I was struck to see that in the roadmap and the action program that is attached to the Barcelona Declaration in 1995, not only academics, businessmen, students, sportsmen, scientists are quoted, but also officials as members of civil society. I think in the meantime, our definition has a little bit evolved. There are various texts, European texts of the partners of the Barcelona process that define civil society. But I think it is fair to say that civil society has always been conceived in the Barcelona process and in the Euro-Mediterranean partnership in a very large sense. not only human rights organizations, although they play a very important part in this, not only organizations that have, let's say, a useful purpose, for example, environment, health, or something like that, but also economic organizations like trade unions, business associations, rural groups, village groups, groups that have to do with the world of media, but also sometimes local authorities. So basically, everything that is not national government. This is, of course, difficult. This creates complexity. And I think what we have seen since the outset of the Barcelona process is a somewhat tense relationship, a somewhat difficult relationship between the civil society and its ambition to represent large parts of society on the one hand, and on the other hand, state and the supervisory authorities that obviously are under scrutiny by civil society, but also want to avoid that under the umbrella of civil society, terrorist organizations or all kinds of illegal activities would find a protected place. And this tension is something which we see in our regional cooperation, which we see also in the legal frameworks since 1995 up to this day. But still, despite all the complexity, it is essential that civil society plays such an important role in the Euro-Mediterranean partnership. And why is that so? I think there are a number of reasons. On the one hand, the mothers and fathers of the Euro-Mediterranean partnership wanted this to be more than just a partnership or relationship between states and governments. They had in mind the people-to-people relationship. They knew there will only be common development between the north and the south, the east and the west of the Mediterranean, if we win hearts and minds, and if people are cognizant of what links us together rather than what separates us. Secondly, I think we were self-critical enough to understand that even if the executive branches, governments act, they need to have a mirror. They need to be criticized. They need to have somebody to discuss with about the measures to be taken. And this is civil society. Thirdly, there was certainly also the idea that civil society is a very, very important agent for development. Development needs to be development of societies and not only development of economic policies or of governments. So civil society has to accompany, has to be a driver of development. Otherwise, there is no deep-rooted and comprehensive development. And there's also the matter of solidarity. I spoke about people to people. Civil society organizations in the north that have played such an important role in overcoming the East-West divide when the Berlin Wall fell just a couple of years before Barcelona. They wanted to express their solidarity with the South, and colleagues in the South obviously very often had already their links with colleagues in the North, and we wanted to provide space for this partnership to grow also on the level of people and of the organizations that people represent. So we have gone through many evolutions of this. Fora have been created, like the Euromed Civil Forum. Organizations were created, the Euromed Non-Governmental Platform, already very early in the Barcelona process. The whole thing took a new turn in 2005, inter alia with the creation of the Aniline Foundation, and obviously after the Arab Spring events in 2011, civil society and the structured dialogue that the European institutions at that time indulged with and brought forward with civil society, for example, in Tunisia, on our development cooperation, on our political partnership with the countries of the South, has become very prominent and has been marking and a strong driver for the way how the European Union works with partners in the South. We want to discuss all this. We want to look back to the 25 years and want to draw lessons for the future. And I couldn't be happier to welcome four very distinguished panelists and good friends, if I could say so, that can shed light on this issue from a variety of angles. I would like to welcome very much Madame Elisabeth Guigou, who definitely doesn't need to be presented. Elisabeth is the president of the Aniline Foundation. She held a number of very distinguished political and governmental posts in the French government, And since 2015, as president of the Aniline Foundation, based in Alexandria, she has gone, I think, through the depth and the height of civil society cooperation, with a special focus on the national networks and also on cultural cooperation, which of course is of the essence in this context. I would like to welcome Elisabeth. She is accompanied by Bianca Moreno-Dodson. Bianca is also known to everybody who has ever dealt with the Mediterranean. But in a way, if you allow me to say so, Blanca, you're the odd one out here, because you are a World Bank official, even if you are the director of the Center for Mediterranean Integration in Barcelona, which is a joint venture, if I may say so, between the World Bank and of course the French authorities. Now, people ask, what the heck has the World Bank to do with civil society? But you're going to explain to us, and I think this will be very important for our discussion. Then we have Mr. Ziad Abdesamad. Now, Ziad, you are young in your heart and in your thinking, but I think it is still fair to say that you are also the wise old man of civil society cooperation in the Mediterranean. I'm very happy to have you here in direct from Beirut today. You are certainly one of those who went through all these 25 years, and I think can guide us a little bit in the lessons that we would like to draw on what we should do in the future in order to avoid some of the pitfalls that we have witnessed, unfortunately, in the past. And then we have Barak Mahadin, who joins us from Amman. Very happy to have you here, Barak. You are, in a way, the young guy in the family here. And you are a researcher who's specializing in particular on youth engagement and activism, something which in the last years, of course, has become ever more prominent in this cooperation. And you remind us, in a way, that when we speak about the population around the Mediterranean, we speak about a population of which about 60% are at the age of youth, younger than 26, 27 years old. So if civil society doesn't mean civil society for the young and of the young, then I don't know what we're talking about. Now we want to discuss a little bit. And ladies first, I would like to start with Madame Guigou. Elisabeth, since 2015, you are president of the Aniline Foundation. And I would like to ask you in a couple of words, basically, to tell us what your experience is. Because the Aniline Foundation was, in a way, when it was created back in 2005, a solution that the directors, if you so want, of the Euro-Mediterranean Partnership found in order to create a specialized body for civil society cooperation, because we acknowledged that governments are not good at that. We need to have a specialist body, and that became the Aniline Foundation. Now, the Aniline Foundation has also seen difficult times. How would you interpret what you have seen? What is your lesson learned? And what would be your proposals for stimulating civil society cooperation in the 25 years that are to come now? Over to you, Elisabeth.
Well, thank you very much, Michael. I'm very happy to see you again on the panel, and also other guests, especially Blanca, because we've been working a lot together. I would say that when I decided to join the Aniline Foundation nearly 6 years ago, the situation in the region was better than it is now. We had less wars, less, I would say, turmoil, but also there had been an increased consciousness of the need to develop civil society links and intercultural dialogue. As you recalled, Michael, the Aniline Foundation was created 16 years ago to promote cultural dialogue, to fight the very nasty idea that there might be a clash of civilization. There is no clash of civilization. There's only a clash of ignorance, if there is a clash. And therefore, we decided from the beginning, the foundation decided to focus on youth. And that was, I think, a very good choice. Youth, of course, both young women and men. And we have a majority of young women in our programs. Why youth? Because they are just the future. and they are the ones who can really shed optimism. And all the youngsters that we at the moment gather in this in our networks, and we'll come back to that, are very both ambitious and enthusiastic at developing links, exchanges, whatever the growing difficulties. So from the beginning, in fact, in 2005, and that was the initiative of Romano Prodi, a former president of the European Commission, because I must recall that from the beginning, we had the support of the support of the European Commission, who took the initiative to create the Aniline Foundation. And that was very important because it was what Michael recalled in his introduction. It was the fact that, of course, the European Union, through its main institution, the European Commission, said to all the members, we, of course, we value very much our diplomatic meetings and links and ways of working together. But we need to have the civil society with us. And that was a first very important step. And the Barcelona Declaration, which I read again, of course, was very clear on the fact that in this civil society, in these civil society links, we should give an urgent priority to human links and to the fact that people should be together, not only for economical reasons or for technical reasons, but to improve their humanity and their mutual understanding. And that was very important. It was written as such in the Barcelona Declaration. And it happened that in this view, the Aniline Foundation was the first institution to be created inside our Euromed cooperation. After that, it was followed 5 years later by the creation of the Secretariat of the Union for the Mediterranean, which mainly focuses on economic and social questions. And what we decided to do was to really, in focusing towards youth, to really empower young men and women to understand their environment, to be able to be part, to be citizens, in fact, to take part in their civil neighborhood dialogue, to be able to not only express themselves in the medias, both classical and new digital media, but more important, to understand what comes from the media. And of course, this media literacy question addressed to youth has become more and more important in the recent years. And this has been one of the new priorities that were given to the Aniline Foundation when I arrived 5 years ago. Of course, when I began, I said that the environment, the political environment in the region has unfortunately not improved. I will not talk about only the wars and the economic and social questions, both not only in the south, but also Europe has suffered major economic and social crisis. And of course, with Brexit and some disputes, things that were not forecasted at the beginning. But what these past years have shown, that we all, in the north as well as in the south, we showed resilience. We showed the fact that we value the most important priority for us is our shared will to promote mutual understanding, to overcome stereotypes, and of course to fight hatred, violence, racism, and extremism. And this, of course, we tried, and I think we succeeded to a large extent. Well, we did not have only successes, but I think that by creating the largest network of civil society with around 4,500 NGOs all around the 42 countries where we are active in, I think that we have done some very good work. The difficulties that we faced were that, of course, well, first, sometimes cultural dialogue is difficult, first. Second, that although we have improved our programs, and there are a lot of them, the Young Mediterranean Voices program, which was originally Young Arab Voices together with the European Commission and the British Council, has enlarged itself in Young Mediterranean Voices program with more than 1 million youngsters involved. And it is very active all around in the north and in the south. But also, we worked a lot with all sorts of young professionals. It goes from young entrepreneurs to young artists, and of course with young journalists as well. And one of the most, maybe one of the best examples I can give to that is that despite this long-lasting war in Libya, and even last year, before there was, more understanding before, well, we never stopped working with our Libyan network. And a lot of them have been invited, for example, by us to go to the United Nations, since we, as you know, we have a lot of partnership with the main international institutions. But I would say also that it was very important that we had we wanted from the beginning to change the look on the region, because of all these crises, of course. The medias, show a very pessimistic, sometimes tragic light on the region. But what we do in our program show that there is hope, that there is ambition, that there is this continuous will for shared values in the respect of our diversity, of course, which is important, but the values of humanity. And this has been really something very rewarding, despite the difficulties. And I would say that with the recent crisis, that of the COVID, our work, with all its imperfections, of course, is all the more important, because the borders are closed, and you can see, I'm sure you are all very well aware, that the main threat in this situation is to have people, going inside, not wanting to meet others, being more cautious, and that, of course, we have to fight. And I will say that because we have had a long experience on webinars well before the COVID crisis and the lockdown, I must say that we managed to maintain those things. So I have been too long for this to answer your questions, Michael. I say that what remains to be done for the Aniline Foundation is really to improve more its visibility, and of course its visibility, because it is very necessary. Of course, as every organization, we also have constantly to improve our management and way of doing things, but that's life. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elisabeth. We are going to come back to you, obviously. I just would like to remind everybody who's listening here that we want to have a public discussion. So this is not only between the panelists. If you have a question, if you have a remark in English, French, or Arabic, please put it in the chat room. And in as much as we have time, we will go into your question afterwards. But now I would like to turn excuse me, to Blanca Moreno Dodson. Blanca, if ever there was a seasoned World Bank official, I think it's you. I understand you have spent, I think, 28 years, it doesn't really show, with the World Bank, from Latin America to Eastern Asia. But as long as I know you, you are in Marseille. And you are the embodiment of cooperation between the World Bank and the Mediterranean, the World Bank and civil society in the Mediterranean. Now, I think you must be intrigued by the huge change that societies are going through in the Mediterranean. On the northern side, aging populations. On the southern side, populations that within 30 years have doubled, and where the large chunk of the population is young. People who are aspiring, people who have ideas, people who embody creativity, but at the same time, of course, have needs for services and want to participate in building a modern society. What does all this mean to the World Bank? How does CMI that you represent contribute to this dialogue, and how does this become operational? Please, Bianca.
Thank you very much, Michael, for your kind introduction, and I'm very honored and grateful to be part of this distinguished panel, and very humbled to follow Elizabeth Guigou because we share a lot of ideas and principles. And yes, Michael, you're right. I am a very fortunate World Bank staff who happens to be totally dedicated to the Mediterranean. And this is my fourth year, and I have learned a lot from all of you. And I'm very grateful that we are celebrating 25 years of the Barcelona Declaration. As you said, Michael, in the beginning, the main objective of this Barcelona Declaration, as stated in the beginning, was to promote peace, stability, and prosperity in the region. And it says specifically that that needs to be accomplished through dialogue, exchange, and cooperation. And that is one of the reasons why several initiatives and alliances, such as the Center for Mediterranean Integration, follow the Barcelona Declaration. It was then considered by the World Bank and the French government that dialogue and partnerships and cooperation was going to be as determinant for the region as any other financial assistance that could be given by the European Union or by the World Bank or any other multilateral institution. So the Center for Mediterranean Integration has been operating under this mandate now, gathering international institutions, country governments from around the Mediterranean and civil society representatives, plus numerous technical partners to help us influence the Mediterranean integration agenda through technical expertise. And as I am a World Bank economist, I like to say that based on my experience, it has been demonstrated that having a dialogue with national governments in connection with the goals of reducing poverty and promoting shared prosperity must necessarily involve civil society, not only to ensure ownership of any reform, of any program, but most importantly, to ensure successful implementation and results on the ground. Otherwise, such results will not materialize and will not be inclusive. This is true in general, but it becomes even more important in countries where the social contract has been broken and where the legitimacy and the credibility of governments is being questioned. Civil society representatives provide the checks and balances, as you said, Michael, in the beginning. They help us to ensure transparency, to help make governments accountable and assess results on the ground attached with government initiatives. In addition, focusing more specifically on the objectives of Mediterranean integration today, and in light of numerous existing challenges, I like to highlight the importance of the private sector, which is part of civil society. And in particular, small and medium-sized enterprises, which represent actually the majority of companies in the southern rim of the Mediterranean, they can contribute to Mediterranean integration goals by conducting business and investment that involve both the North and the South on equal footing. Mediterranean integration in that sense must be conceived using a co-development approach. In that sense, it means transfer of know-how, local job creation, local business acceleration, at the heart of the business partnerships between the North and the South, and of course between the South and the South as well. It's not a matter of providing fiscal incentives to large companies that operate in a dual system with no spillovers for local companies and for local jobs. It's about seeking mutually beneficial goals, which may imply eliminating restrictions to local businesses in terms of credit access, constraining laws and regulations, and other obstacles that may prevent them from participating in joint ventures and business partnerships. I would also like to highlight, as a second very important component of civil society, the role that youth plays. And this is very much the case in the programs of the Center for Mediterranean Integration. They bring their innovative ideas, and they help us amplify the voice of the center vis-a-vis policymakers. And it's also very good to give them the signal that they can be included in our work. They're not just there for consultations. They are at the heart of what we do. And we operate in a multi-country setting where they are able to exchange ideas and knowledge. And those ideas are very much appreciated, and they help us engage with other young people in the process. We are convinced that partnership and dialogue must be pursued to really reinforce and make Mediterranean integration a reality. And civil society must be at the center of that transformation. Let me just finish by saying that the Barcelona Declaration indicated, again, peace, stability, and prosperity as the main goals. And we must act in parallel tracks to promote inclusive growth and development, while at the same time removing the reasons behind the remaining conflicts. This has to be acknowledged. The region still has conflict. And some of the factors behind that conflict are strictly political, but many others have to do with water scarcity. People do fight for water, and that is at the heart of many of the conflicts in the Mediterranean. Remaining income disparities. Those disparities have grown to be larger over the last years, unfortunately. Lack of trust in institutions, and unfortunately persisting poverty incidents, which unfortunately with the COVID pandemic, this is going to be even much more of a problem. But I am convinced that if we look for prosperity will bring peace. And if we strive for peace, peace will bring prosperity. So on that note, I would like to end, and I'm very happy to answer any questions. Thank you very much. Michael, back to you. I think I have exceeded my time, my 5 minutes. That's why I gave you back the screen. Hello?
So I have to start.
Hello, Mr. Abdesamad. Can you start your intervention? Yes. We have lost Michael Collar. Yes, Thank you very much.
Okay, so I have to start without his blessing. Thank you very much. Indeed, I'm afraid to say that I was 5 years ago present in Barcelona as a civil society representative, actively participating in the civil society forum. Frankly speaking, at that time, I was not understanding very well what was happening, but then in the course of the years, we started understanding the importance of Barcelona process. What I want to say that civil society was on the heart of this process all along these years, and this is thanks to, let's say, the progressive vision and values of the European Union, and thanks also to certain allies that we had in the Commission, like Michael Collar is one of them. But if I may allow to say that civil society during these 25 years witnessed a lot of ups and downs in relations with the dramatic events that took place during these years. Let me start by saying that the initial, let's say, initiative was aiming at creating a shared zone of prosperity and peace and free exchange. It's needless to say that the Barcelona in '95 came just after the end of the Cold War and the launching of the peace process in Madrid, and then also agreement, which means that peace was a constituting part, was a very important element of the initiative, something that was, let's say, defied few years after the launching of Barcelona process, and many dramatic events took place. Not only the failure of the peace process in Palestine, but also the war on terror, and then the occupation of Iraq, and many other events that they, let's say, define the main pillar of this process. And the repercussion of these events mark a highly negative impact on the political situation and in the whole region, at least on the security, stability, democracy, and human rights. Another important event that marked the region was the summit of the League of Arab States that took place in Tunisia in 2004, where the leaders of the Arab nation granted civil society the freedom to work and the right to participate. And this was followed in June by the launching of the Partnership for Progress and a Common Future with the region of the broader Middle East and North Africa as an initiative of the G8 and the countries of the region, where civil society also was granted more and more important role. So all these events, in addition, in 2005, the Euromed, Michael mentioned the Parallel Civil Society Forum as a parallel process to the ministerial meeting, but in 2005, the Euromed Civil Forum became independent from the EU institutions, and the Euromed platform was established as an independent entity in Luxembourg. It aimed at creating a permanent mechanism of monitoring and to follow up the implementation of the decisions of the ministerial meetings. The platform enjoyed the certain funding from the Commission and from the EU in general, EU institutions. In 2008, we witnessed the launching of the Union of the Mediterranean, where the room for civil society was more limited, was less than the room for civil society in the previous process. But unfortunately, in 2008, we witnessed the launching of the economic and financial crisis and climate crisis, which has a strong repercussion on the European economies, but also in the economies of the partner countries in the South. And as a result, I think that the 2010 Arab Spring was, one of the results of this crisis in the region. Whatsoever, in 2005, the Arab Spring, the EU response was remarkable, where a series of joint communication engaging the EU in supporting the democratic changes and supporting mainly civil society as a core in these changes. And in response to this situation, the Commission established the Civil Society Facility as a tool to implement the renewed EU agenda for the region. In 2014, the Commission launched the structured dialogue with civil society, South mainly, and the structured dialogue was an occasion to express the direct support and to push for democratic changes and political reforms, including free and fair elections. In 2017, the Commissioner mentioned in his opening speech the Majalat project, which is the regional hub suggested as a result of the structured dialogue and as autonomous, because the structured dialogue was a top-down approach organized by the Commission. The regional hub is an independent entity leading the structured dialogue with civil society South in the format of the Majalat project. Let me say that after this quick historical background, now we are in the second wave of the Arab Spring and with the pandemic reality. What I want to say that once we are witnessing, we see the second wave of the Arab Spring, means that the process of change did not change. And we still have, let's say, hopes that this can lead to real changes in the region. So the process did not stop. On one hand, but also we are witnessing the emergence of a new form of social movements or popular movements, that they are not formal. They don't, let's say, they are not similar to what we've been witnessing previously in form of social traditional social movements, which means that the definition that we started with in Barcelona and that we developed during these 25 years, we need now to rethink the definition of what do we understand by civil society and who are the main components and the active, influential actors within civil society. Hello? Let me also mention something. I mean, during this the eruption of the pandemic, civil society, or let's say the initiative of a few networks in the region, they issued a statement addressing the EU, and civil society from the South asked the EU in the statement, it was in April 2020, to focus more on the support to productive sectors, and something that it was mentioned in the speech of my previous colleague, to create sustainable jobs. The plans, according to the statement, should not only focus on the resilience, but rather to address the root causes of the crisis, including the support to civil society in the planning and the implementation. Let me also mention something about the EU response to the COVID, which is focusing on three main dimensions. I have to say that the EU response to the COVID was important and was very generous. I mean, they allocated $20 billion to the partners, etc. But let's say the EU is invited to play a more vital political role, because it was mentioned that peace is one of the core pillars of the peace process. So in protecting security and peace building as prerequisites for development, this should be the primary objective of the EU foreign funding. In addition, democracy is in regression. The challenge is to make a critical pressure with a positive engagement. And that's why, I mean, I want to comment a little bit on the global response to COVID-19, where the EU focuses on three dimensions: the people-centered economy, the digitalization, and the enhancing European Green Deal. People-centered economy necessitates avoiding business as usual and a paradigm shift towards productive economies with value added, yani high employability, and coupled with redistributive tools in order to address inequalities. Digitalization has tremendous political impact, mainly on transparency and governance, but also it has some negative effects to be considered and dealt with. Digitalization can increase inequality in case of the lack of equal access of technology to technology and connectivity. Digitalization can also be used to violate human rights and privacy. And recently, now, a report from the Regional Office of the High Commissioner of Human Rights, they did kind of a survey on the impact of COVID on human rights, and they considered that there is a lot of violation of human rights in terms of tracking the records. And last, the European Green Deal should go beyond enhancing resilience towards addressing the root causes of inequality and climate degradation. Let me conclude by these remarks. The EU is seeking the use of funding to transmit democratic values. However, previous experiences show that the impact of conditionality is very limited. Nonetheless, promoting democracy should focus more on supporting independent civic actors and enhancing their role. The lessons learned from the past teach us that human rights and democracy, peace and security and prosperity with sustainability go hand in hand. We don't have the privilege to be selective nor to waste time. There is a pressing need to act quickly in a high coordinated way in order to address inequality, the deterioration of security and environment, the grave violations of human rights and freedom. Our future is at stake, and Europe is invited to consider its role, not only as a donor, but as a full partner with all the peoples of the region.
Thank you very much, Ziad. Thank you for your insights, and I apologize that I was kicked out by technology, but this happens, I think, to many of us these days. You always learn, and now I'm back. Barek, let's turn to you. You join us from Amman. You are with the WANA Institute and working on human security, actually, human security dimension. Yes. Could I just ask you, in 1995, where were you? Were you at primary school, or what did you do?
This was actually going to be my first point. Well, thank you very much, Michael, and the panel for the great insight.
Barek, if you allow me, when we celebrate the 57th anniversary of Barcelona in 50 years, you might be around the age of Ziad right now. So you are the one who is going to organize the future. And I would like to ask you, in addition to what you already want to say anyway, what if we could do it again? If we could do it again, what would we do differently? What would be your proposal? Over to you.
Thank you very much, Michael. I appreciate it, and again, thank you for the panel for the great insights so far. It's both, I think, a challenge and an opportunity to speak last at a panel, simply because, you know, at one side, a lot of what you wanted to say has already been mentioned, but on the other side, the opportunity is actually on reflecting on that and on building on it and taking it further. I think I was just about 2 years old when the Barcelona process was actually declared and the declaration was adopted, and yet I think that this is, you know, a living testimony, I think, to the importance of the declaration. The fact that we're still talking about it today after 25 years, the fact that it has, you know, gone through different cycles of enrichment and improvement and development, and it tried in a way to respond to all the different, you know, kind of global and regional events and developments, again, proves the fact that this is, you know, that this is a platform that works, that this has actually, you know, concretely contributed to creating opportunities for young people and civil society actors. You know, I was smiling as you know, as was mentioned earlier, you know, the Young Mediterranean Voices program. I had the pleasure, you know, of taking part in the program and giving a debate training, and then later on, when the social contract issue was raised, I also, you know, smiled again, because this is something that, you know, been written, we wrote about extensively, and the fact that the evolving social contract, sorry, in the region begs new realities and draws new realities that require us to respond differently. So to your question directly, Michael, would we, you know, do you recommend doing it in another 25 or 50 years? I would definitely say yes, but we have to be mindful of all the lessons that have changed and all the you know, the issues that have shifted, issues related to the way that young people engage, to the venues that they engage in, the role of technology. We've heard, you know, a mention or a reference to media literacy literacy and digital media, all of these issues, combined, I think should constitute the basic foundation of thinking about this again and doing it again in 25 or 50 years. Yet I wish to, I had, prepared some talking points, but after the discussion that we've had, I think I'm going to tailor those around a little bit. And if you allow me, in the very short time that's given, to wear two hats. The first one is the senior researcher hat, working at the WANA Institute, which is a policy think tank based here in Amman, just to share some insights from our research on civil society work and some challenges, some opportunities that are there. But more important, I feel, and more personal, is sharing my insight and wearing the hat of a young person from the region, as simple as that. So putting on the first hat as a researcher, we've seen clearly, and firsthand from a number of research activities that we've done in surveys and focus group discussions, that the civil society in the region, in Jordan and in the WANA region, as we wish to call it, does have or face a number of obstacles and challenges. And we wish to always say that all of these go back to what we call gaps in the human security paradigm. As was mentioned earlier, the human interaction and the human dignity of the people in the region is really the one issue that was at the essence of why the Arab uprisings have been driven forward. And the fact that we continue, unfortunately, to think of security in the classical, traditional, way of a state-centric security model has, I think, reflected and boded, negatively on the work of civil society. So one of the key issues that we've observed in the research we've been conducting and reading, us and others, of course, was the noticeable extensive securitization in the region over the past decade or so, for all sorts of different purposes and reasons that I don't think we have the time to get into now. But the fact that there's a greater securitization to the region in terms of how business is being carried out, and the fact that we're seeing narrower and narrower space, given to civil society actors, that is definitely one alarming, I think, development that we've observed over the past years. The second one I would add, or one of the things that have changed, I would say perhaps, and I would agree totally with the first point made in the panel, which is, the situation now is not, unfortunately, better than it used to be 25 years ago when the declaration was adopted and put forward. So the second point in relation to that is related to the trusted actors, or the question of the trusted actors. So whom do young people and whom do people actually trust in delivering programs, in providing services, in creating safe spaces for them? When we did a survey in Jordan and in Lebanon and Tunisia, 3 countries, it was clear to us that, and interestingly, that we've seen that the government is typically looked at as the least trusted actor, but also, on the other hand, the most expected actor. And that, I think, reinforces a certain edge about the shifting social contract in the region, and the fact that we're still... you all can hear me well, yeah? Okay, excellent. Yeah. So the first point was relating, on the trusted actor question, that governments are seen in the region today as, again, least trusted but most expected. So there's still that certain aspect of the social contract that sees the government as the father figure, the one that should provide the services and carry out the development. That still exists. Yet the lack of trust in the government remains as a key obstacle. When it came, I think, to the civil society actors and the CBOs and the NGOs at the local level, it was noticeable that these were the most trusted actor, but the least capable, in the sense that their capacity to carry out programs, the funding streams, the fact that there's so much government control over procedural and administrative issues relating to finances and to funding, made seriously challenged the capacity of civil society actors, which were the most trusted ones. And that, I think, advises us all to think about how can civil society be further supported, and the capacity of it, how can it be further built going forward. Interestingly enough, the INGOs, or the international actors, in the surveys and the research we've conducted, they were seen as the most capable, yet views were mixed on how much they're trusted. The ones that were seen to be so closely associated with governments, with formal governments, did lack, the trust of the locals and the local society actors, civil society actors, just because that the lack of trust in the government has trickled down, I think, to to all the actors that potentially could be seen as associated with the government. And the fourth interesting actor that we asked about and we tried to investigate was the security forces or the security actors in again, the 3 countries of research that I mentioned. These were largely trusted but least expected to actually take any part in controlling or engaging or interacting with civil society or with development questions more broadly. So this is, again, from a research perspective. If we are to take it, I think, more into the personal hat and the personal opinion, as a young person from the region who have been privileged enough to take part in many exchange programs that came in the context of enhancing the Euro-Mediterranean dialogue and engagement and exchanges. I would say that one of the key issues that we should focus on in the way forward is related to the resilience question. And that is, unfortunately, more often than not, the lens and the approach that is used to look at young people in the region, to try to understand young people in the region, is a vulnerability approach. So if you do any simple research now on all the challenges and all the threats and all the burdens of development and economic burdens in terms of unemployment, in terms of violent extremism, if we're talking security, you would see a lot of literature that helps you and walks you through how young people could be a potential problem. Unfortunately, on the other hand, there is very little to actually document the good work and the positive contribution that young people are doing, and what actually makes the absolute majority of young people, not engage in destructive kind of violent extremist acts or violent acts, but rather engage constructively in peace building and contribute positively to peace building. So the literature there, I would say, is still very premature in the sense that it needs to further be developed. And we should, I think, if we are to do this in 20, 25, 30 years time from now, be better aware and more aware, I would say, of all the resilience factors that does not push the 99.9% into destructive pathways, as opposed to focusing on what are the factors that push that very kind of 0.0001% of young people today into violent past or destructive pathways. To wrap it up, I would say, because I do have, I think, just some time left, I would just like to share kind of quickly what I would probably think of as 7 lessons learned and 7 issues to keep in mind going forward when it comes to civil society in the region. What has proven to have worked from the Barcelona process and other entities and initiatives was that the vertical people-to-people, civil society to civil society interaction is a very effective and way of engaging, and one that has lasting impacts, as opposed to the horizontal, as opposed to the vertical between states to states or institutions to institutions. So going forward, we should, I think more of how can we engage at the horizontal level between people to people. Second is looking for new actors and engaging new actors. Unfortunately, given all the recent developments in the region, the recent conflicts that we've seen, a lot of groups have become more vulnerable in terms of, we're saying, refugees, stateless persons, internally displaced. These are the ones that I think should be part and parcel of any framework that is to be designed when it comes to civil society moving forward. The third lesson, or the third point I would like to highlight, is that we should look for new venues, and we should be up to date on the new venues of engagement that young people are identifying and that civil society is identifying. And on this point, if you just allow me to elaborate very briefly, if we look at youth engagement today, I personally think that all the talk about the youth disengagement is a myth. It's not really a reality, because I genuinely think that the young person who decided to go on to Tahrir Square, the young men or women who decided to go down to Tahrir Square in Egypt and take part in the revolution, is as engaged as the young person who takes up arms and goes with Daesh or ISIS to Syria and Iraq and fight, as much as the volunteer who decides to engage in their local community. All of these, I think, are forms of engagement. And the problem, or the issue has been, is that we're too often fixated on linking and associating engagement with formal engagement. So we tend to look at elections turnout or people's participation in official political processes without being aware that young people today are engaged in apolitical spaces, in decentralized ways, as Ziad has very correctly mentioned, and in decentralized, apolitical, and informal spaces. So the fact that they don't exist or they don't take part largely in official and formal spaces does not mean that they're not engaged. And I think it's our task to go and look for these new venues of interaction that, again, that are characterized by being informal and decentralized. The fourth lesson is that we should, I think, pay more heed and more focus and attention to the design of programs to make sure that, again, we're not leaving anyone behind, as I mentioned in the earlier point. Unfortunately, there are a lot of civil society programs that are repetitive, that are duplicated in effort, that are duplicated in funds. And I think it's the responsibility of the donor and the international community here to make sure that there's a clear mapping of who's doing what, just to make sure that the money is being spent on things that have not been tried before. An additional lesson, and I promise I'll be finishing very soon. An additional lesson I would also like to share with you is, and I think this might be an unpopular opinion of sort. Yet the fact that we always try to reach for the hardest to reach and engage them, I personally think, yes, it's noble, the idea and the thinking behind it, but it's also dangerous in the sense that if this person that we reached out to and gave the opportunity to, we are not able to follow up with a sustainable opportunity, their sense of entitlement, their sense of deprivation, relative deprivation, would be actually higher than the young person or the other person or the actor that has been more and more used to this. So to make this a bit simpler, the expectation and the entitlement that is usually associated with being taken or given an opportunity could be a dangerous weapon or a dangerous unintended consequence if we don't follow it up with a real, sustainable, effective opportunity later on. And the last point I wish to highlight and end with is related to the fact that civil society work, as all of you have hinted and mentioned, it's always up and down. It's a constant struggle. It's not a destination that, yes, we get to and then after that, it's all rainbows and butterflies. It takes kind of an acknowledgement that this is a day-to-day effort, a constant, again, struggle and a constant fight that we all should be mindful of all the time. It's not something that we reach out and again, it becomes all good and happy. And I think I would just stop here, and I'm happy to take any questions or comments on what I said. Over to you, Mark.
Many thanks, Barit. Many thanks indeed to you and to our co-panelists. I was following the chat room in the meantime. Unfortunately, we don't have a wealth of questions, and our time is up. The organizers were so kind to give us some additional minutes. And rather than going to questions from the audience right now, because we don't have the time for that, and I apologize, I would just ask every one of you to answer in 1 or 2 minutes, 1 or 2 sentences, if you can, the following question. Civil society is essential for the future of the societies in the Mediterranean, North and South alike. But we know, and your interventions have illustrated that, how complex the notion is. We speak about NGOs, sometimes we speak about GONGOs, government non-governmental NGOs. In some countries, we speak only about international NGOs. We speak about NGOs that have no legal form of recognition. There's even in some countries the notion of royal NGOs. Just to make you smile. So what do we need to do? What can we do in order to encourage young people to engage in groups, in organizations, formal and informal, to take care of their societies? And what do we need to tell the governments in order to create more space for them to help with the future of their own societies? If I could ask every of you, starting with Elisabeth, to give us 1 or 2 pieces of advice in this respect. Elisabeth, s'il vous plaît.
Well, I think that the responsibility of governments and international institutions is really to try to create the conditions for those NGOs and networks of civil society organizations to be able to exist first, then to live in the long run, which is not easy, of course, because most of them, I can see that, 4,500 organizations, they are very often small entities, and they come from very ambitious initiatives. They have little means to exist and to express themselves, and they exist because we help them and because they believe very much in their mission. And therefore, I think that the responsibility of governments and international bodies is really to respect those initiatives, grassroots initiatives. This is the real, richness, I think, of the Aniline Foundation. These grassroots initiatives that come from youth and who say, through young artists, young entrepreneurs, young sports men and women, etc., this is what we want to build together. And therefore, it's not easy because very often those NGOs are, contesting and government. It has been expressed there is a lack of trust, but nevertheless, it is important for governments and institutions to understand that they have to leave this space of freedom of expression to these bodies. Of course, what we do in the Aniline Foundation is also to educate youth, to express themselves by respecting everyone, including, of course, governments and international bodies, because there is no way in having a fight, which is sometimes the case, between governments and those NGOs. Sometimes it comes from the NGOs themselves, and we should not, of course, encourage that. And this is one part of our work, to say we want in the Aniline Foundation to protect your autonomy and your critical spirit, but you have to know that your expression can also respect those who help you first, and those who are elected by people and conducting the diplomacy. So that's one thing, and I think that in doing
Elizabeth,
that,
I apologize. We are a little bit under time pressure, so
okay.
Could we perhaps move on to Blanca, Ziad, and Barek, who each have 1 minute maximum, unfortunately, because we're already borrowing time for the following section. I apologize. Blanca, from a World Bank perspective, what would you recommend?
Okay, thank you. I'll try in 1 minute. I think that today civil society is already well organized in the sense that the social media allow for such organization, for good or for bad. So what we really need to do is put in place mechanisms for dialogue, meaning that the civil society groups feel that they are being listened to. Give them a space, but also listen to them and reflect their inputs in the elaboration of policy making. Not think of something that has to be done because it's the right thing to do, but really show that you're listening. And that is necessary to ensure the sustainability of policies that are prepared only between the World Bank or the EU and the governments without involving civil society will not work. And as Barek said, when you create expectations, when you open the dialogue, you better listen to them. Otherwise, the effect could be negative. So I'll stop here given the time constraint, but thanks a lot. Great opportunity to talk to all of you.
Muchas gracias, Blanca. Ziad, دقيقة واحدة.
Thank you, Michael. Listen, look, I wrote something in my notes when I prepared my ideas. It's interesting. It's a little bit diabolica. First, I say that the multi-financial framework, the new one, is allocating fair funding for civil society. The problem is civil society is facing sad reality, restrictions, etc. The problem is how to overcome this sad reality, on one hand. On the second hand, how to outreach the relevant civil society, especially those who are outside the framework and outside the cities, including the non-formal entities. Grants should not reach only formal and pro-Europe civil society, but also the informal activism with credibility, what Barik was trying to say, with credibility and the ability to widespread the outreach to more people in need. It's important to watch carefully and to face the tendency to create new entities to counter the flow and mainly to counter the EU influence within this geopolitical struggle in the region. I think that it's vital to politicize the funding to align with the core values of democracy and respect of human rights on one hand, and with the EU external policy on the other hand. This is what I was intending to say previously. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ziad. And of course, in 2011-12, we created the European Endowment for Democracy exactly for that purpose. Barik, you have the final word.
Yes. All right, thank you. In 1 minute, I would say, if young people are to be engaged in the civic space more and more in masses and in groups, that space should be three things. One, it should be safe, again, given the extensive securitization that's happening. Second, that they feel to be heard in these spaces and actually taken seriously. And the third one, that their agency should be acknowledged and recognized. Because again, young people are engaged today. It's just that they're engaged in different venues and in new venues that we can't see. And the last word is to the governments, and I'm not sure if governments are listening, but I would say that a distinct feature of the evolving social contract is the fact that young people are seeing their governments today as part of the problem and no longer the solution. And that is a very kind of dangerous characterization of what's happening today. So if young people are to engage constructively, and if we are to reach out to them and make sure that they participate, governments should look at them as citizens and not subjects. And I think that would be my last and final word.
Barik, thank you very, very much. One couldn't put it any better. I could give you many, many more comments now on what the EU is doing, but I think this would be a waste of time after your beautiful conclusion. Thank you very much to all of you. It was an immense pleasure for me to hear you and to benefit from your insight. Elizabeth Guigou, Blanca Moreno-Dodson, Ziad Abdesamad, Barik Mahadin. We are really only appetized. I mean, we couldn't exhaust this subject, but this was the first session. And now we can hand over to our colleagues who are going to discuss the future perspective for civil society cooperation in the Mediterranean with a more distinct view on the cultural dimension, I understand. So thank you very much to all of you. This is the start. And we did what civil society needs to do in the first place. That is talk, exchange, and liaise. As long as civil society does that, it's alive, and good things will come out of this. And this is also the message that the European Commission, the European Union, is of course conveying to our partners in the South in every formal meeting on human rights, on political dialogue, and so forth. This has been the case. This will stay like that. And you heard the Commissioner and his commitment to civil society. This is a firm promise. Thank you very much to all of you. Thank you to our listeners, and enjoy the continuing session number 2. Over to you.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It is a pleasure to welcome you to the Aniline Foundation session on the promotion of intercultural dialogue in the Euromed region. I can hear some voices in the background. Thank you. So my name is Eleonora Insalaco, and I head the operations and the intercultural research work at the Aniline Foundation. First of all, I would like really to thank the Secretariat of the Union for the Mediterranean for the invitation to the Aniline Foundation to organize this session and to share our contribution on the promotion of intercultural dialogue and civil society work across the European Euro-Mediterranean region. I would like to introduce to you our panel of today. I am accompanied by distinguished guests and friends. So we have here with us Dr. Nabil Al-Sharif, the Executive Director of the Aniline Foundation. We have Mr. Josep Ferrer, the Director of the European Institute of the Mediterranean and Head of Network of the Aniline, the Civil Society Network in Spain. We have Ms. Zeynat Bouk. She is an Aniline Foundation trainer of trainers. She is also assistant principal at Lycée Célestine in Bremih in Lebanon. And we have Ms. Fatima Zoura Ouatis, that is a leader of our Young Mediterranean Voices program. So first of all, also thank you to you to be here with us. So with the session of today, we would like to contribute with the insights that our experts will be sharing. We would like to contribute to see the state of intercultural relations and the Euromed cooperation 25 years after the launch of the Barcelona process and 15 years after the creation of the Aniline Foundation as the first institution for the promotion of intercultural dialogue in the Euro-Mediterranean region. And this reflection is based on the experience of the work of thousands of organizations, civil society organizations and young people all across the region. And it is based also on the research that we have been carrying out in the last 15 years on intercultural relations in the Euro-Mediterranean region. So this will be our starting point to try also and identify ways to further promote cultural cooperation and also the appreciation of diversity as an asset and a value for the social development of all the societies of the region. So without taking more of your time, I would like to give the floor to the first of our panelists, Dr. Al-Sharif, and hear from you, Dr. Al-Sharif, what is the meaning of intercultural dialogue today, and what can we do also for the future of intercultural dialogue in the Euro-Mediterranean region? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eleonora, and welcome also to the dear panelists who are joining us at this session today. And again, thanks really to UfM for inviting the Aniline Foundation to be part of this very important event. In answer to your question, Eleonora, I would like to say that intercultural dialogue across the Euro-Mediterranean region in 2020 is completely different from dealing with this topic 15 years ago when the Aniline Foundation was created, and at the same time in relation also to the fundamental needs that the foundation has to address. In other words, the environment has changed and our needs and challenges have also changed, have been actually increased. We feel that our mandate, which was launched 15 years ago, based on the Barcelona Declaration, which we celebrate its 25th anniversary this month. We feel that this mandate is still completely relevant, and in fact, it's more relevant than ever today. We feel also at the Aniline Foundation that we are invested with an important responsibility to ensure the appropriate transition of the organization to the new phase of its programming
cycle, which also corresponds to a new phase in the way we do international cooperation. In 2020, the coronavirus pandemic has exposed people to their vulnerability in a very harsh way, but it has also helped people to feel how we are all connected and interdependent, which is really at the end of the day at the very heart of the Aniline Foundation's mission. Our scope at the foundation has been in the past 15 years to make people understand, feel, and live how we are similar in many aspects, how to accept these differences, and how these differences can help to live in a better and more sustainable society. At the beginning of the pandemic, emergency measures were taken in all sectors of society, and also the Aniline Foundation took some immediate measures. However, 9 months after the outburst of this pandemic, it's clear that we need to adapt our way of thinking and working to a situation where this situation will be longer in time and whose effects might also be might take a long time. The pandemic has made more visible challenges related to diversity and mutual perceptions through increase in racism, prejudice, and negative stereotyping. Particular concerns refer to discrimination, hate speech, racial profiling, and fake news, especially on social media. These are new and old challenges, or all challenges that have been revived, that have taken a newer dimension. Border closures also to contain infections and social distancing have constrained the possibility for direct engagement, interaction, and dialogue between people, and lack of mobility opportunities is particularly frustrating for young people. The sudden shift from face-to-face to remote learning and virtual interactions have shed light on the digital divides that exist, the difficulties to adjust to new formats and to reach all target groups. Civil society, in particular, has faced difficulties to access funding, to plan within a predictable time frame, and with skills to be acquired to turn planned work programs into virtual ones. On the other hand, the pandemic has also created some conditions which can favor dialogue work, as people had to step out of their comfort zone, and there is a new space and need to rethink the way of promoting intercultural dialogue, intercultural learning, and intercultural relations more broadly. We count on the rising of solidarity initiatives and the media attention dedicated to these initiatives, whose leaders are often young people, women, and migrants. An important point to build the ALF message for dialogue and solidarity at the local and regional level. Finally, the interconnection of the Euro-Mediterranean societies is a historic fact and a vision for the future. We are calling for institutions, national and local governments, civil society organizations, and citizens of this space to believe and invest in multilateralism and cooperation. In the coming months, the broad civil society network is invited of the Aniline Foundation, the board, ALF Civil Society Network, the broad rather, is invited to join efforts and showcase the important work organizations do every day for their societies in the framework of the Aniline Foundation Virtual Marathon for Dialogue in the Euro-Mediterranean region. The marathon is one of the Foundation's contributions to the 25th anniversary of the Barcelona process and an example of international coordinated work that is central to advocate for more intercultural dialogue as an essential tool for the cultural, social, human, and environmental development of societies of the Euromed region. Thank you so much.
Thank you for this reality check, because we are living a crisis, but also we see opportunities for the future. And thank you also for sharing the information about the virtual marathon as this federating moment of our big civil society network across the region. And now here I would like to ask our friend Josep Ferrer to tell us more about our work, our civil society work, as you represent the Spanish Civil Society Network of the Foundation, and an institution that is being committed for many, many years to the promotion of intercultural dialogue in the region. So what do you consider are today the main challenges for civil society cooperation, and also in which way the network of the Aniline Foundation, as the largest civil society network in the region, do you think it can contribute to some of these challenges? Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Eleonora. It's my pleasure to be invited to this event organized by the Aniline Foundation and the Union for the Mediterranean. Thank you very much. In fact, as you said, and as the Dr. Nabil Al-Sharif raised, there is no doubt that we are living in a very tough period for the civil society. Because of the pandemic, our societies, both North and South, are suffering too much. And here there is no distinctions in the Euro-Mediterranean region. Our social cohesion is threatened by socioeconomic effects of the COVID-19. And we are witnessing every day how significant layers of our social fabric become more and more vulnerable. Inequalities are increasing and the risk of exclusion is rising. And to me, one thing that is crystal clear is that there is no sustainable economic progress without human development, without social improvement, in fact, without tackling inequalities. And to revert this tendency, we have to build more cohesive societies. That means that an extra effort has to be done to reinforce inclusion. And from my point of view, inclusion is very much related to interculturalism. So we have here a huge responsibility altogether, the whole Aniline Foundation in this regard. And I do know that in the Aniline Foundation, we are ready to undertake this endeavor. Our grassroots members and our national head of networks are suffering because of shortages of resources. Now there is more people in need and the resources are limited, for sure. And in addition to that, not all our members have the same possibility to overcome the current situation. And the constraints imposed by the social distancing that restrain many of activities don't help, that's for sure. The intercultural dialogue, not only, as we will see with my colleagues later on, but is very much related to face-to-face context, to physical exchanges, to active interaction. And it is true that all of us have very much improved our skills in digitalization. And we have to take advantage of that to reinforce exchanges between both shores of the Mediterranean in an easier and cheaper way, and minimizing our ecological footprint. We are already capitalizing this, and we will exploit this more in the months to come. But at the same time, it's true that we cannot lag behind those who are not able to follow. So we as Aniline Foundation, must strengthen their capacities and to be sure that everybody is on board. In the Aniline Foundation, we have a network of more than 4,000 members. This is huge. This is very impressive indeed, but I do think that is not the most crucial. We are much more than that, I believe. What I think really make the difference is our richness, our different views, our diverse approaches, from youth to arts, from human rights to environment, from heritage to gender. Every mix is possible in the Aniline Foundation. I'm always absolutely amazed by the creativity, the capacity to innovate, the out-of-the-box approaches that many of our members are applying when implementing projects. Also the flexibility, the capacity of adaptation to different contexts, always complex and never easy. The knowledge also of the specific reality in the field, where everything happens in terms of intercultural dialogue. We are also cheap, and we have to highlight that. That means that we are very efficient. With very few resources, our members are able to implement incredible activities. And on top of that, we are convinced, we are absolutely engaged, we are resilient. And I think we cannot miss all this capital. But we need to draw resources, as Dr. Nabil Al-Sharif said. For instance, to develop more sub-granting schemes. And all this work of drawing resources is not only the task of headquarters in Alexandria, it's also the responsibility of the EU institutions, of the members of the Board of Governors, and of the national head of networks. And I do think that the Aniline Foundation is very well placed to respond to these challenges, as they are our common goals. This is what I would like to share with you in this first talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Giuseppe, for stressing really the importance of intercultural dialogue and social cohesion as key also for development, and about the capital and the resources that we have with our large civil society network. You touched upon a very, I think, key issue when you spoke about the resilience, the creativity, the capacity to create and to produce even with the limited resources. And of course, the call that you made, it is very relevant, because if we want to make change and impact, also there has to be the appropriate support, of course, to organizations that are working every day on the field. Thank you, Giuseppe. Now I would like to hear from Ms. Zainab Book, an educator and with a long-term experience, and you have worked with us on our program on intercultural citizenship education in the Euromed region. So Zain, I would like to ask you, in which way do you think education can contribute to the promotion of this agenda for dialogue in the Euromed region, and where do you think we should invest the most also in the next years? Thank you, Zain.
Good afternoon. Hi, Eleonora. Hi, everyone. It's really an honor to be with you today. For me, I've been working with Aniline Foundation for a number of years, and from my background as an educator, I believe that with the growing fears in the region, there's a need to minimize those fears by bringing or digging deep into the reasons behind those fears. And in most cases, the fears that are hindering the development or the communication between the south and the north parts of the Mediterranean come out of the lack of knowledge about the other. So the lack of knowledge may be because for some youth, they have never met anybody else from the other part of the world. So the lack of knowledge is a very critical root reason behind those growing fears. As an educator, I believe that intercultural citizenship education is highly important because, first of all, it places the youth at the core or the heart of intercultural citizenship education. It believes that the power to change or to create a difference in the region is through empowering those youth who are the region or who are the future of the region, and who will certainly be able to do what we have failed to do so far. So empowering those youth through an education, be it in the formal, informal, non-formal sector, is very essential, because it allows the youth to look into their societies and face their challenges, be it challenges in education, challenges in the different forms of inequalities they face around, or challenges in employment and unemployment, in participation, in responsibility, in autonomy, in the ethical flow of action around the region. So when we target youth, it's a very great target to build a more inclusive community where disagreement becomes a source of joy, a source of richness, not a ground for conflict. And it would be the essence of coexistence when youth learn how to handle this diversity and how to talk about it and how to bring it into a positive outcome. So developing the skills of the youth as agents of change, empowering them, connecting them, allowing them to set their priorities and work on achieving them, allowing them to develop their critical thinking skills, their communication. These are foundational tools to create a space for dialogue. That's why placing education at the heart of intercultural citizenship education is very essential, because in my opinion, it is one of the most sustainable tools that we can build or invest in to create a change. So empowering those learners to problem solve, to be socially innovative, to bring common set of ethics and values across the region, to think critically, to explore the authentic problems of their communities and connect with other people around the globe to try to find solutions from various perspectives, thus bringing peaceful dialogue into the table, connecting education to NGOs and to the social dimension, empowering advocacy as well. These are essential tools to take into account when dealing with education in all its forms. So in Aniline Foundation, in the section where I've been involved, there has been a lot of effort to empower educators who reach out for youth in the region in that dimension. So far, we have done a lot. So within the past years, we have been able to publish the first handbook on intercultural citizenship education, which is put at the service of youth, educators, governments, civil society members. It's a reference that they can access, that they can work upon. It highlights intercultural citizenship key concepts, and the activities are designed and able to be adjusted by each community based on the needs. In addition to creating that handbook, which took years of work and which was, I believe, the outcome of working with hundreds of educators across the region to bring that handbook into the light. After that, we were able to conduct 2 trainings for trainers that worked as capacity building programs, where we were able to reach out for 60 educators across the Euromed region. And they worked as multipliers for our program. So 2 trainings were done. One was done in Malta and the other was in Cyprus last year. These social activists or educators, they went back to their communities, and we developed a monitoring program, follow-up scheme that went with educators after they finished their training to see what assistance they might need to bring that training into their own communities, to adjust it, to adapt it. And the minimum every teacher or trainer or social activist was able to reach a minimum of 20 people. Some of them were able to reach 60 other educators, and those educators were able to reach up to more youth in the region. So the expansion and the follow-up scheme was really very essential, not only to theorize the concept, but also to bring it to action and to try to offer the support needed after the training. One additional thing that has been done, and it also gave us a lot of, if you want, information about where to work and how to develop, is the polls that we have done twice so far. So these polls, they work as questionnaires that we disseminate to people across the Euromed region. And recently we have reached out for around 1,000 people. With these polls, we were able to find out about the needs of the people in this community. We were able to sorry for that. Okay, we reached out for 8 countries in the European region and 5 countries in the Southeast European region. So because I wanted the numbers to be very accurate. And within these polls, we were able to collect data and conduct computer-assisted interviews with the participants. And in some cases, we were able to work or to develop data from fieldwork. Altogether, this collection of information was able to give us an eye-opening where we need to develop further. I will share, for instance, one of the things that caught my attention. Yes, did I proceed further, Eleonora?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Your last views, Zeina, what should we do in the future to invest more on education? Just
yes. For the future, I believe we should be able to make this handbook accessible to more educators in the region. And the best way to do that is to transform this handbook into an online course where we can reach out for a greater number of educators and learners. And then in this way, we would be able to meet the needs of the digital space and to expand our program further. Another thing is having an online platform for teachers and the practitioners to share their best practices and open a space for youth to work on maybe common projects or to reflect on different projects that they have done in their own context. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zeina. I am sorry that I cut you short, but I know that you have a lot to say because also you're in contact with so many people that are committed to promote intercultural learning. So from Joseph, on the one hand, we saw the need to go back as soon as possible, we hope, to face-to-face encounters, but at the same time, we have here a space that we are all learning to use, that is the digital space. So we need also to try to take the opportunity and the advantages that these spaces providing, also to try and reach out to maybe people that are not able sometimes to travel or to participate to direct face-to-face activities. But thanks, Zeina, also on insisting on the importance of education for the sustainability actually of our work. We work in the field of attitudes, values, behaviors, and this takes a long time, and we need to start, of course, working with people from a very young age. So you touched also upon this very important point. And then now, Fatima, sorry, we've been keeping you waiting, and we would really like to hear more from you as a leader of Young Mediterranean Voices. And also we heard how important and how crucial young people and youth is for the Aniline Foundation. We heard also in the speech of our president, Madame Guigou. So what do you consider that today are some of the main issues that people both north and south of the Mediterranean are facing, and in which way a program such as Young Mediterranean Voices is supporting young women and men from the region. Thank you, Fatima.
Thank you, Eleonora. It is an honor speaking to you, and I'm always very excited to represent the Young Mediterranean Voices program and to speak about its impact. I'm Fatima from Morocco, and I am a YMV alumna. And YMV is an intercultural program that fosters dialogue and cooperation between young people across the Euromed region through providing a safe space to youth that feels disengaged from political, economic, social, and cultural opportunities, and also through providing an exchange platform for youth from Europe and Southern Mediterranean. So coming from my own experience at YMV, I can undoubtedly say that the cycle of activities of the program, the debating, the exchange, the dialogue activities in the different countries have amplified the voices of young people. We are no longer debating within our small communities. We now engage in intercultural dialogue on issues of common concern with our peers in the Euromed region and with policy and decision makers. We are concerned about gender equality, world peace, climate change, still sustainable development, and so on. And YUV is our go-to platform to advocate for these issues that pertain to our well-being, to our future, and to the improvement of our communities. It is worth mentioning that YMV champions Euromed cooperation and dialogue while adopting the Sustainable Development Goals with a focus on economic development and employment, of course. So we are building the young people's capacities and knowledge so they can advocate decision makers to take action towards the 2030 global agenda. And this is expressed in all YMV activities, such as the Euromed Debate Policy Forum that I attended in Malta back in November 2019, where I met a group of young leaders and we took part in policy platforms and public policy debates to suggest measures to counter climate change. And national debate forums are also an opportunity to bring the SDGs to the foreground of dialogue. So for example, here in Morocco, we are holding the National Debate Forum next weekend with a focus on SDG 13, which is climate action, SDG 8, decent work and economic growth, and also SDG 4, quality education. We hope to generate policy recommendations that will be shared with decision makers in the policy forum and also in the form of policy briefs. And you spoke about the challenges. I believe there are two main challenges facing young people today and that programs such as YMV are proposing solutions to. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we do hear
yes,
you, Fatima.
Okay.
No problem.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So I said about the challenges, I think there are two main challenges that young people are facing and that YMV is bringing a solution to. So the first challenge is how to build bridges connecting young people that do not necessarily speak the same language or come from the same background. And in my opinion, the approach of bringing together youth to engage in intercultural dialogue around common issues was and continues to be very successful, especially in the framework of exchange activities such as labs and seminars that YMV organizes. And the second challenge is how to ensure that young people have a meaningful say in decision making and how to incorporate the outcomes of this intercultural dialogue in policies implemented in the region. And policy debates and policy forums are one huge step towards bridging the gap between youth and policymakers and also ensuring active participation. And I would like to finish my intervention by applauding the adaptability that young Mediterranean voices showcased during the pandemic. The engagement shifted to the digital space and virtual platforms, which ensured even larger reach and wider inclusivity. And this goes to show that young voices matter at all times. And it gives me, as a young woman, and I believe I speak for many young people, it gives me hope that we can indeed be enablers and drivers of change. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fatima. And I think that we are working, and always we say as international organizations, for the empowerment of young people. But the first step for empowerment is to give a voice to people and to hear what the people have to say. And so when you are sharing this result, let's say, of the program that has amplified the voice of young people and has also created mechanisms so that these opinions, these recommendations, they arrive to decision makers, I think by itself it is a result. We cannot say that, of course, all the recommendations are taken on board by decision makers, but it is a very important process of growth that I think for the young people participating in the program, it is happening already. It is a reality. So thank you for sharing your experience. Now I think I'm aware of time constraints, so I would ask maybe our panelists for a very final word, really take 30 seconds in a moment of crisis like the one of the pandemic. Would you like to share any message, let's say, of optimism for the promotion of dialogue and Euromed cooperation in the Euro-Mediterranean region? Director Sharif, first, floor to you. You needed to activate your microphone, Director.
Oh, yes. I think it's activated now. Okay.
Yes.
Yes. I'll try my best in 30 seconds. I think really the pandemic has definitely put us all in a very difficult and unprecedented situation, but it really has also shown us that we have no way of getting around this pandemic except by working together more. Okay, so there is, of course, a negative message that we are not able to meet physically, we're not able to communicate properly as we want, but I think the positive message is that we are destined to work together. We are destined to be closer no matter what, because it's really a matter of survival now. That's really my message.
Thank you. Giuseppe. Microphone.
Yes. As I said, as Dr. Al-Sharif said, there is a lot of work to do right now, and without doubts, as soon the pandemic allow us to act in a face-to-face manner, in complementarity, of course, of the digital formats that we are now used to working with. I absolutely think that the Aniline Foundation is very well equipped to respond actively, and I'm sure that we will do our best in that respect.
Thank you, Giuseppe. Zeina, a last thought.
I think this is a great time for us to adapt to new tools in education and take the challenge ourselves, and maybe try to transform education into flipped classroom where online teaching would open a space for dialogue for students across the Mediterranean. So for me, it's certainly a very positive chance despite all the challenges.
Thank you, Zeina. Fatima?
I join my voice to that of the other panelists, and I believe that these challenging times have allowed us to discover new venues on how to collaborate even remotely. And I think for young people, they should not be afraid to be innovative. We have a lot of tools, we have a lot of platforms that we can use for our benefit and to collaborate and cooperate. So we shouldn't really be afraid to use these tools and, as I said, be innovative. Thank you.
Thank you to all of you. Of course, I will not try to summarize because I would not be honoring our panelists with a summary of all their ideas and recommendations. I would just like to conclude by saying that we need to to invest more on intercultural dialogue, and that intercultural dialogue today, even in the midst of the pandemic, is not a luxury. I am saying it is more and more at any opportunity I have, because for too long intercultural dialogue is being considered as an elitist topic of conversation, but actually we believe that this can be the solution for many of our problems, many of the problems of our societies. And it is not only that I believe. We heard the voice also of Josep Ferrer as a representative, we can say spokesperson from our civil society network on the importance of dialogue. We have done our research, as I said, for the last 15 years. So we have around 80% of the Euro-Mediterranean populations telling us that they consider intercultural dialogue as a very effective tool to prevent and tackle some of the divides and conflicts in our societies, and that this can be a tool to live better together in our societies. So we want to continue work on this agenda so that we can have what we say sustainable societies, meaning societies where everybody is respected with his or her diversity, and where also we have a respect for the environment and the respect for diversity in all its forms. So thank you to you again, dear panelists. Thank you to the Union for the Mediterranean for this opportunity, and really a big thank you actually for the people that have been listening to this conversation, because it means we are many more that we believe in this agenda. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. Hello, dear friends of the Mediterranean, dear friends of the Union for the Mediterranean. Welcome to this second panel, Future Perspectives for Civil Society Cooperation in the Mediterranean. 25 years back, the first ministerial Euromed conference took place here in Barcelona to launch the Barcelona process. It was for the first time that all countries around the Mediterranean gathered together to launch a big effort to modernize the societies through cooperation between all parts of the Mediterranean, north and south. And out of this came this Barcelona process that we commemorate in its 25th anniversary today. The main objectives of that association, as you know, were to build around the Mediterranean an area of peace and stability, an area of shared economic progress, an area of intercultural dialogue among different peoples and cultures around our sea. It was a historical effort, and one of the pillars that was assumed already since the beginning was that one of the necessary ingredients for this historical effort was the active participation of civil society. And this is why in this November of '95, here in Barcelona, not only took place the ministerial first Euromed ministerial meeting that launched the Euro-Mediterranean Partnership, but also the first civil society forum, Euromed Civil Society Forum, to underline the fact that this big endeavor could not be just the result of the cooperation among governments, but could only be the result of the participation of everybody, governments and citizens and civil society and the organized civil society together. This is why this big first Euromed Civil Forum took place, gathering here more than 1,200 participants from all the countries around our sea and Europe, and from all different origins, academics, professionals, people from the institutions, etc. So now, 25 years after that, we know that we have done something to overcome the ancient difficulties, but that we have at the same time new challenges. And the new challenges, you know, that are the climate change and sustainable development and gender equality and social inclusion, among others. This is part of the sustainable development efforts of the set up by the international community at the global level. But mainly all these challenges are much more acute in our area in the Euro-Mediterranean. But to discuss these, which are but a few of these challenges, we have an extraordinary panel this afternoon. And we will have first, as you know, a keynote speech by Ms. Odette Bouchamaoui, who's a Nobel Prize laureate, co-laureate in 2015. And then three panelists who will report us as how it went in the working groups that have been taking place before these final sessions on sustainable development, on gender equality, and on social inclusion. So let's go first for the first part of it. And I salute Ms. Odette Bouchamaoui. You see, Ms. Bouchamaoui, that I have with me a Tunisian tree of peace. I don't know whether you can see it or not. No, well, okay. You can see it. And you have the floor, because we are very much eager to hear from you. You know, before I have to introduce you, that Ms. Bouchamawi was the president of UTICA. UTICA was the big organization of entrepreneurs who, along with the UGTT, which is the Union of Labor in Tunisia, constituted with the Quartet, with other lawyers, and with the Tunisian Human Rights League. And they were the ones who brought who conducted to this successful endeavor to give Tunisia a true democratic constitution. And that's a big success that won all of them the Nobel Prize in 2015. So we are very much thankful for you to being with us, especially me as ancient ambassador of Spain to Tunisia. I am all the more eager to hear from you, and you have the floor. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Excellency. I'm so happy, and I'd like to warmly thank the organizer for inviting me to contribute to this fifth UfM regional forum. Maybe I have to add something in the introduction. I'm also the president of the steering committee of the summit of the two shores, which is initiated in 2019 by President Macron. And this is very important to focus on this because it was with the civil society, and I was with them to people from the civil society to put on the table some projects. I'd like, for my speech, I have, I divided in some different parts. I'm going to have just an introduction, and I'm going to give two examples. One, the example from our Tunisian national dialogue, the work with the civil society, and the second example is for the COVID, and the last point will be for challenges and recommendation, and I'm going to have this conclusion, a short conclusion. Just to say, it's for me, it's what is very important. I'd like to also to say that this partnership between the north and the south of the Mediterranean was very important, and still is very important, because we have many different things and many different links together. Historically, geographically, economically, and humanly links. And this Mediterranean is for us, it's a bridge between the north and the south. And what was done in '95, it was, to create a new framework of new relation between European and the South Shores countries. And I think it was done under the sign of peace, sharing prosperity, and it focused on the role of the civil society. They encouraged the role of the civil society, and they supported them with some funds. Many things, many works was done, and many platforms and groups were formed, and just to find solution for the conflict prevention, for the culture, for the education, for the youth, for women, for human rights, and many other topics. And also it created, for people something, a place to work together, to meet together, across the national borders, without, looking for our nationality or for our religion. And what was done, it's really for us, as I'm from the south, is how we can learn and how we can exchange experiences with the north. But the problem is in the south, we don't have the same framework. We don't have the legal framework. And we don't have all those laws, and to allow us to work as civil society with more freedom. We have some difficulties. Those difficulties. Because it's not so easy for some civil society organization in some countries. They don't have the right to protest. They don't have the right to be together. They don't have this the freedom to express, and those. They will, of course, they will touch the democracy, and it will be, let's say, a good, not a good, sign to be more democratic, to be more open. And this civil society, what the civil society did, I mean, for the long this long period is how we can say, let's say in our region, what we did is in Tunisia, particularly because I mean since 2011 we played as civil society organization a very important role. We were, I mean, behind this revolution, and we were together without any political leaders to take care about our country and to lead this national dialogue. I mean, we were a driving force behind this national dialogue. And this national dialogue allowed us to bring together the majority of Tunisian political parties and civil society to be together and to sit together and to have this dialogue to discuss about our challenges, our future, and to build together this future. I think what we did as four organizations from the civil society, we drew up a roadmap for a democracy, and we succeeded on establishing this modern constitution in Tunisia, and we succeeded to have the free election. And really, what we did, I mean, what we did is also to keep the rights of women and to reinforce rights of women in Tunisia. This role, and I'd like to really to fix this point, the role of the civil society, we succeeded. I mean, we as National Dialogue, as Quartet, we succeed because we have this trust of Tunisia, we have this trust of the civil society, and we were also together to build and to rebuild a new country. I know the dreams were at this time so big and so high, but at least we were able, I mean, to find the solution, and even the hopes were very high. I think what we did, I mean, was great, because for us we found a peaceful solution to our revolution, and we ensured a democratic outcome in Tunisia. The second example that I'd like to also to point is this period of this COVID. What we learned from this COVID, where the COVID-19, what we saw, it's, I mean, this input of, I mean, and the output of people everywhere. I mean, these challenges and were very high, very high. But we everywhere, people, they were there. I mean, to help, to find solution, and the civil society, I mean, they covered at least many things. I mean, just to help the government, to help people with, I mean, with very big support. And that's what I really I like it, because I saw that this is good competition, just to build something good and to be together and to help each other. I mean, at the end, this is what is very important to say. If the civil society is aware about problems, we can find solution. And if we have this contact, I know what was happening in Lebanon. People, they helped Lebanon. What was in Syria, in Libya, what we did even here in Tunisia with Libyan people. This is the role of civil society. The civil society is aware about problems, and the civil society is there to be, I mean, to be with all people and to help people. Maybe I'd like also to focus on a point which is, I mean, as I said, I'm the president of the steering committee of this Two Shores committee, and what I learned from this, I learned because we had 100 persons from the civil society. We from the North Shore and the South Shore, and we were together for at least 6 months to work together, and really we were able to think together, to share some ideas and to share some concrete projects. I learned so much from this experience, because I met I mean, people from different countries with one only goal: how we can be together, how we can reconstruct a new relation together, how we can learn from our experiences, how we can exchange experiences. And it's, I mean, what we did, of course, we did it as, I mean, civil society, but also thanks to the foundation, the UfM, the Aniline Foundation, our partners, the World Bank, the European Union, and I mean other banks. But what we did, we met together in different places, and we were together to discuss together, and we spent a really very good time to think, not one project for one country, but to think about one project which we can scale this project in different areas. This is very important to think, I mean, more open, to think more bigger, and to think for others. And I hope this project will continue, because, you know, we know now, but I mean, after this COVID, so we interrupted a little bit, but I hope, because we were very enthusiastic, and we were very performant, because we did a lot of job. And I think it will be a good example to say the civil society from the two shores are able to have the same idea, and they are able to live together, even we have some differences. About challenges, what are our challenges? I think what is very important, and I'm from the South, I insist on this to say, the difficulties that civil society organization that they have in different areas, especially in the South. I mean, there is, they need to be recognized by the politics, because in some countries, I mean, the laws are so strict, so they don't have this freedom to have their companies. And we need also to have the transparent law, I mean, the right to assembly, the free expression, and we have to protect also, I mean, the participants when they are in the street, they are asking for something, and they need also funds. This is a big problem today. I mean, there is a lack of funds, and there is a lack of resources, to be trained, to learn, to travel, to put, I mean, some projects. I mean, it's not so easy. And also the role, I mean, we have a role to play, is to be consulted to the politicians, that they have to listen to us, and we need to have this, I mean, the possibility to have access to the information, and to be a part of this country, of our countries, and to be a part, to participate, I mean, on all, I mean, topics, political one, economic one, social one. It's very important. That's what we did, for example, in Tunisia as a quartet. We are from the civil society, but we were there, I mean, to find a political solution, and we invited, I mean, different parts, and we were we had the trust of civil society, we had the trust of the media, and we had this access to the information. It is very important to have this access to information. And also, I think we have other challenges, but we have to be aware about it as civil society organization. We need, I mean, we have common issues such like climate change. I think we have a lot to do to mobilize civil society across the Mediterranean to think about this this big and very important climate change. I mean, about the water, about the sea, how we'll have a clean sea, how people they have to cross the sea, not to go to other country, but just for their pleasure. Or it's very important to think about this. And there is another issue which for me as a woman is very important, is to work on this and to have this as a priority, is to think about this gender equality, particularly in the Arab world region, where, I mean, we have to take care about the women and to give them their rights, and to women should be considered as men, as they represent the half of the population everywhere.
So thank you very much.
Okay, I was so long, but it's okay.
No, please, you have time to finish.
I get it. Okay, I'm not going to be so long. And also, when as I'm talking about this gender equality, maybe we have to think about. I mean, to be there to protest and to defend women from sexual harassment and domestic violence, which are very important everywhere, and particularly in some regions where people they are more conservative, where people they could not, I mean, ask for, I mean, for others to help them, for help. The relation also, we have a big challenge. I mean, the relation between political actors is not so easy in some countries. Hopefully for us, Tunisia, we are now a free and very democratic country. We can go outside, we can criticize. In other countries, the relation is I mean, is not so easy, and it's not, I mean, allowed for activists to be more free. And the last, I mean, thing is, I mean, to understand each other, I mean, without having these stereotypes or secularist perspective, because when we put the religion, or when we put some old or old-fashioned ideas, maybe we'll have some bad thinking about each other, and we cannot, I mean, achieve what we are, what we'd like to do. The last thing is for the recommendation. I think what is very important is to capitalize on the experiences, because as you have in the north very good experiences, we have also in the south very good experiences, and we can learn from each other. Also, it's very important to have those strategic meetings like this summit of the two shores, or what UfM is doing, what the Aniline Foundation is doing, what other organizations are doing is very important. I mean, strategic meetings, even with politicians, with the youth, with women, with entrepreneurs, with the private sector is very important. Also, it's the recommendation is how we can reinforce this capacity for civil society organization to help them to how they can create their organization, how they can be more active, how they can build new projects. We should create a force of resistance. I mean, to say yes, we are a part, and we have this right to participate in all decisions. Also, we need to build bridges between, I mean, all companies. I mean, and as I'm an entrepreneur, and it's very important, I mean, to focus on this economic side, and with, I mean, this economic part, we can build a new environment, and we can push our politicians to follow us, and will be like a leader to have this relation between the north and the south parts. Also, it's very important, I mean, to have this knowledge of different financial institutions, and to have this the way how we can finance our project, how we can learn to finance our project, because without money we cannot progress. Maybe also what we have is we need to mobilize the public opinion if there is something wrong, when there is, I mean, problems with women, with the youth, with something with the freedom, with it's very important, I mean, to have this, to take care about this problem, and to be all of us, we have to be involved, and to be like one group to defend this, because when we are together, we can increase the visibility, and we can, I mean, have the result. I'm always, I mean, for me, what is also for this gender issue, I think what I have one recommendation is how we can promote and to protect women, and particularly for women to be entrepreneurs, to be independent, I mean, and to have their social rights. And it's very important them to have access to economy, to social rights, because for me it's a matter of priority, because we cannot look for freedom, for, I mean, to be, I mean, this dignity, if you don't have the capacity to be independent, to have resources. This space is very important, because it's a space for exchange, it's a space for dialogue, it's a space for more openness, it's a space for transparent, I mean, dialogue, and it's a space for traveling, for learning, for meeting together. And I think it's very important, I mean, to with this this space to continue. 25 years is not enough. We have to continue more, and we have to still to keep this, because this space will offer for all of us big opportunities to be together, to learn together, and to have a better future for all our generation. Thank you so much.
So thank you very much. It was a very good thing that the organization picked your example because it is the best example we could have of how civil society can bring about extraordinary changes in the society and in a country because of the role that civil society played in the transition in Tunisia from authoritarian regime to democracy. And I think that this is a proof that even at the highest levels of political and social life, the activity of social society is crucial. And without that, probably Tunisia would have had a much harder way to go. But now thank you very much for your intervention and for all the explanation you have given to us. And now we will go to some concrete aspects of this big endeavor you have taken in Tunisia, because you have been bringing about changes in all aspects of social and political and cultural life in Tunisia. And now we will go with the first of our speakers, or to make a kind of interchange and comment with Hajar Hablici. She's the president of the Youth Climate Network, Network and rapporteur of the working session 1 on civil society, environment and climate change. And she is an expert on environment and sustainable development, and is for many years has been, although she's so young, but a long experience at the same time, especially in Tangiers, with industrial wastewater and environmental management. So, Hajar, you have the floor. Thank you. You have the floor. And my first question, because it's not just the floor, it's a kind of exchange. So, what were the main conclusions of your session on civil society and environment and climate change? Because you were the rapporteur. So, how were the main conclusions?
Thank you. Yes, it was indeed very interesting exchanges we had yesterday.
You have to raise the volume.
Can you hear me well? Do you hear me well?
Okay.
Yeah.
If you can raise it higher, better, but otherwise, go ahead.
Indeed, it was very interesting exchanges yesterday with other colleagues.
No, we can't hear you. Can you continue to speak so that we can see if we can hear you?
Exchanges yesterday with our colleagues from environmental society in the Mediterranean region, and we agreed on.
Well, look, Hajar, really, we cannot hear you. I'm sorry. I'm very sorry, but maybe we can change a bit the order so that you can arrange and look what's wrong, and we can go to the first of to the second of the participants, who is Miriam Khalaf, who's a project coordinator for Euromed Feminist Initiative. And so you have the rapporteur of another one of the working groups on gender equality and the challenges that this poses. What were the main conclusions of your working group?
First, thank you for having me. Thank you, sir. And thank you for the Union for the Mediterranean for the invitation to participate in the working session on civil society and gender equality, and to report our findings. Our session was titled Civil Society and Gender Equality. So as you can imagine, so many issues were addressed and discussed, but I'll highlight the main challenges and the main priorities that we discussed. Basically, following our exchange yesterday during working session 2, we had representatives from civil society organizations working in the Euromed region, namely the Middle East Department from the ACCP, Idea Born, the Arab NGO Network for Development, and the Euromed Feminist Initiative. During this working session, we discussed at length the role of civil society in addressing gender equality, the issues and challenges related to combating violence against women in the region, and the elimination of gender stereotypes. Obviously, we're all facing the same challenges posed by COVID-19. Countries have imposed various measures of control to control the outbreak, which has amplified existing and growing challenges to both the physical and political security of women and girls. We've discussed the main challenges in the field of women empowerment and gender equality. The fight for gender equality has particularly suffered this year due to the unprecedented challenges posed by the virus, not only because such a crisis, a pandemic, is never gender neutral, and issues such as domestic violence or women economic empowerment have massively deteriorated, but also because in more general terms, civil society and feminists alike have lost further space for action. The reduction of physical spaces because of COVID-19 restrictions and the legal administrative constraints has resulted in long and exhausting bureaucratic procedures, plus the decrease of donors' funding represents a concrete threat to the active role of civil society organizations and eventually their beneficiaries in the region. Among the recommendations, 3 priorities were highlighted for the years to come. You can imagine so many priorities were identified, but we have agreed that these were the main and key points. First point was intersectionality. Intersectionality, as we all know, discrimination is interconnected with many factors, such as ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation. This is why we agreed that we need to ensure that gender justice is interconnected with larger factors in the region, notably cultural, economic, and political ones. We need, therefore, policies and programs that incorporate all these elements, and not only isolated and small actions tackling single issues, such as women empowerment. Ensuring social protection for all groups is the main entry point for gender equality in the years to come. Our second key priority was education and intercultural dialogue. We need to work on capacity building, not only for women, but for the community as a whole, because we all know that gender equality benefits the society as a whole, and not only women and girls. It presents practical steps towards building a better, sustainable, and more satisfying future for all. Therefore, we need a comprehensive action to address these issues. Gender issues, as we all know, are deep-rooted within cultures. Therefore, reaching gender equality also needs deeply rooted work within each local context. Priorities specific to different national contexts must be addressed to actually encourage the whole society to tackle gender equality, as well as building trust rather than pushing too fast, too much. Here, the practice of gender equality through concrete actions within communities must be addressed with a rights-based approach, while also focusing on education. This is important to actually achieve gender equality rather than just pledging it. The last point that was the third point that was highlighted was cooperation at the local level and co-ownership. International cooperation has been stressed as a key factor to advancing gender equality through the region. However, it needs to be coupled with a strong and balanced dialogue on the national level and local level. The involvement of local communities through extensive consultations in the production of public policies on gender equality will increase the co-ownership and the legitimacy of civil society organizations working in the region. Indeed, cooperation with national authorities is fundamental to the work of civil society organizations and projects. As much as international cooperation can support civil society action, building up legitimacy and trust within local communities remains essential for the development and the success of the action on the ground and in the region. Last but not least, achieving women's rights requires a structural transformation of development models and interventions at the economic, social, political, and cultural levels. This is central. Also central is the role of the state in designing policies and tools, reforming legislative frameworks to actually achieve gender equality in the region. As I said, this is an essential step to promoting gender equality and assisting partner countries in adopting schemes adapted to their own resources. Thank you so much.
Very much. Look, Mariam, and this is a very good outcome of your working group. Thank you very much. But you have raised the most key issues on that, because education is obviously at the basis of all possibilities for all human beings. But women that have been discriminated for so long, I think it was mainly on the basis of preventing them from really benefiting from the education. And out of that came many other realities. And you have said that social protection is an essential tool. But how have you been assessing the progress of social protection, and especially in South Mediterranean countries? Do you think that they are really in the way of doing that, or there are special difficulties? Because this implies some budgetary possibilities. Well, we go back. We will come back in a final discussion to that, because I see that now the organization has placed us with Guillaume Thureau. So thank you very much, Miriam. And we go now with social inclusion. Guillaume Thureau is the director of an extremely interesting initiative, which is the Spanish Association of Second Chance Schools. That means that young people who dropped attending school too early and without jobs, without then any other possibilities, you try to attract them and to bring them back to school, although it is maybe a special school designed for them, to give them a second chance and to prepare them to get into the job market and to recover the possibilities of having, I would say, what should be a normal life full of hope and possibilities. How do you do that? How well you presented this? I imagine this example to your working group. How was it received?
Yeah, thank you so much for counting with me, and I will try to reflect as much as possible the discussion within my group. Just to answer your first question, the second chance schools are really giving for young people, giving a second chance to education, because our school system did not somehow find the right way to deal with them, and they are nevertheless full of talents. And our goal is simply to bring them back to education and employment in one case, or back to the educational system. So the session we were in, based on civil society and social inclusion, was very interesting, with experience from all around the Mediterranean, but with very common conclusions, despite this diversity, with 4 major messages. The first one being focused on people's rights and dignity. First, it was very clear for us that we need to change the way we look at vulnerable people, especially young people, but not only. That's where it all starts. And then enable their civic participation and right to exercise their full citizenship. And this is the point needed to make it possible for a real empowerment of these people in order to experiment their own solution. So that's a very strong common vision of the group, that these people needs to be the leading their own future and building their own future. And in order to do that, it's absolutely necessary, and that's come to the second message, to go to have trust in the civil society. The civil society needs space, skills, tools to develop in a country or in a territory in order to organize itself in a way that enables legitimacy and representation. Civil society should not be considered as a threat, but as a resource instead, forging possible solutions and enabling community leadership. Therefore, it needs trust to start and grow, and a civic space where it can freely voice out communities' concerns and demands. It has the ability, civil society, to bring innovation from local to national and even regional Mediterranean levels. The civil society has an ability of being flexible, agile, and adapt quickly to the changing environment. But it needs the support from governments. It needs continuity. It needs time to grow and to assume its role. And then I come to the third message. The third message linked to the civil society and social inclusion is that it needs to grow from local roots. We all agreed that it needs to be a bottom-up approach, starting from understanding the local reality and needs. There are no copy-paste solutions that works everywhere. The only way is to experiment solutions and implement them first locally. And there's a unique and key role of connection with all the local stakeholders to make it happen and to make it, very important, sustainable. The civil society, the local authorities, the private sector, the economic sector needs to work together. And that's the whole construction that is needed on a local level. And last message.
Thank you, Guillaume. Oh, no, excuse me. You have some time to finish because it was supposed to be rather an exchange, not just a report of what you have been discussing, but it is interesting what you are telling us. So just finish, because I saw that Miriam was appearing there. I don't know if she's available or not. So Guillaume, there is one question, because we start at the same time these exchanges with the public, and we are receiving some questions. And one, I think it applies especially to you. It is, should the organization of civil society engage in direct action, or rather an action of advocacy, so that the public administration or the public powers take action to solve the problems, for example, of education or etc. What do you think? This report between advocacy and direct actions from the part of the civil society organizations?
Clearly, what comes out of what I think and the group thinks is that it needs to go on both actions and advocacy and political and dialogue with the different authorities and other stakeholders. Action, because the civil society is part of the society. It's part of different organization, association, foundation, whatever, that are really in contact with the needs, and usually they are part of the solution to bring answers and help to the people facing difficulties. So these organizations are like a network, like are an interlocutor for the different public authorities, for the private sector, in order to give a voice to all these people that are really struggling, and that start with action.
Okay, okay. So thank you. Yes, yes, you are absolutely right. This is both things are necessary, but maybe the outcome of it is that the different organizations maybe should specialize either in advocacy or direct action on the field. And maybe for each branch of activity, it would be different. But I see now that we have on the screen Hajar Hamlisi. Maybe you can take the floor and explain what you were going to explain before. Guillaume will come with you later on. Yes. Hajar, can you speak? See? Okay, yeah. Okay, go ahead. You have the floor. Now, please. You have the floor, please. Can you, Hajar, start speaking? Try to speak so that we can try to hear you. No, not possible. I am sorry. We cannot hear you at all. So we'll have to read your report to see what...
Ambassador Florenza, the moderator of the session will connect now to read the conclusions instead of Hajar. Thank you very much. Ambassador Florenza, can you hear me?
Sí.
Yes. Martin Hebel, the moderator of the session of yesterday, will connect now to give us the report of the session. You can proceed with the two other participants meanwhile he's connected.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Thank you. Yes. Okay, Hajar, so I'm sorry. We'll have to read your report. It will be extremely interesting, and we will continue with the last part of our session because we have received a number of different questions. And I would now go, because I see that she's always with us, Ms. Oued Bouchamawi. And the question is about the Tunisian transition. And it is so broad as to say, do you think that other countries will be able to go the same way and have the same success as Tunisia in building a democratic constitution and a new democratic political system? Briefly, please. Can please the Secretariat give the floor to Ms. Bashaumi? Can you speak, please, so that we can hear you?
I think that the civil society everywhere, and particularly in Arab countries, they are able, if they have to take this in their hands and to say, yes, we can change our situation, but with a peaceful way, because it's very important to follow this way, the peaceful way. I mean, we are not here to give lessons, but maybe we can be inspired by Tunisian experience, and we can adapt it to other countries.
So thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, I think that you are right, that anyway, the Tunisian example is an inspiring example. I think that you are right. This is probably the best way to put it. It's inspiring for others, and we know that they will follow the Tunisian way. The only point is that we don't know when. So let's hope that the civil society is able in all other countries to follow the example of the Tunisian quartet. Now I will go
Ambassador Florenza, sorry.
Yes.
We have now Martin with us, the moderator of session 1, that will take the floor for Hajar.
Okay, so please take the floor then briefly, because we are about at the end of our session.
Yeah, of course,
and
yes.
to
Good
go
afternoon.
To the closing remarks by the Deputy Secretary General.
Yeah, good afternoon, Ambassador Florenza. Can you hear me? Just to check.
Yes,
if you can
very
hear me.
well.
Okay,
Fine.
so I was the moderator on the session about the role of civil society in dealing with a better environment and tackling climate action, and we had a very interesting and important representation of different stakeholders from different countries. We had Egypt, Greece, Tunisia, Italy, dealing with different aspects of climate change, energy efficiency, plastic pollution, food waste, and it was a very inspiring session, because we saw that to make a change, to make an impact in the field of climate action, the involvement of civil society organization is, of course, of utmost importance in cooperation with national government. Why? Because, as it was said by by the other speakers, civil society has the capacity, has the expertise, as the means really to operate on the ground and to raise new issues that are crucial for environmental sustainability. Like the issue of microplastic pollution was central in our discussion, because it was a typical issue where the civil society took the lead in raising this new issue and bring it to the attention of both the media, general audience, and of course national government. So we reach three main conclusions during this very enriching discussion. And again, I want to thank all the panelists. I want to thank Hajar. Unfortunately, she had a technical issue, so I will just briefly read what happened, and then you will get access to a full report. So we have to recognize that civil society organizations are providers of essential services. They produce a tangible impact and concrete change for the communities at all levels, at local and at regional level. They not only implement projects or programs, but they really produce actual environmental wealth, and they put human capital at the disposal of the community. They put the best skills, they put the best qualified people really to have an impact on the ground. A stable investment for civil society organization, moving from a project-based approach to a more structured global approach, was discussed as a contribution to enhancing collective environmental and natural resources, especially in the post-COVID area, which highlighted many environmental dynamics. So we should really change the way, try to evolve in the way we're working with governments, are also working with civil society organization in a more structured and constructive way, moving from a project approach to a more structured approach through broader environmental program. And again, here, this transition from projects to broader actions with the recognition of good practices at international and local level, especially under the leadership of the Union for the Mediterranean, was highlighted this capacity really of the Union for the Mediterranean to act as a regional global platform to raise the voice of the civil society, especially in the environmental sector, transforming local results into globally and easily recognized good practices at regional level. The second one was, of course, the pressing need to revitalize the political agenda, the policy agenda, not the political agenda, the policy agenda, focusing on the protection of the environment and the broader way to tackle climate change. drawing a strong conclusion from the COVID-19 pandemic. So there is a need for a cultural change to live in a better way, respecting the environment, and putting into the policy debate and the policy agenda, putting a cultural change and a progressive change toward the mainstreaming of environmental issues. And of course, again, to achieve sustainable development goals into the policy agenda, a constructive and advanced dialogue between national governments, all the stakeholders, including the civil society, of course, was deemed as essential. And here again, the interface of the Union for the Mediterranean in fostering multi-level dialogue and cooperation among different levels of stakeholders, the UfM, that can really facilitate the cooperation among regional initiatives, was acknowledged as an important element for the future of the civil society in the Mediterranean area, building on a long-lasting structure and open dialogue with the civil society organization. And finally, and I think that's a very important take from our working session, is the centrality of the political support of the Union for the Mediterranean level, Union for the Mediterranean at regional level. And here we highlighted very much the importance of the labeling process, which really from a project implementing at local level, receiving this label, this political support from the Union for the Mediterranean, is a very strong legitimation of the work carried out by civil society, and it may facilitate the awareness of national governments about crucial environmental issues that are brought forward by the civil society organization, and then this can really reinforce the cooperation between all stakeholders in achieving sustainable development goals. And here we really acknowledge the importance of the Union for the Mediterranean in contributing also to science-based communication, since any kind of endorsement of scientific publication reports and analysis carried out by the civil society and the endorsement by the Union for the Mediterranean is really important to give credibility to the knowledge generated by the civil society. And here we really mention the UfM support to Agenda 2030 for a greener Mediterranean, as well as the MEDEC report that was endorsed by the Union for the Mediterranean, and it gives visibility and legitimacy to the work carried out by the civil society. So these were the main takes from our working session, and sorry if my delivery was not perfect, but I was a bit caught by surprise. So
thank you very much. Thank you very much.
For your attention.
It was an excellent report, although you had to somehow improvise it.
Yeah, exactly.
We have overcome this difficult situation because we are not still fully adapted to the new technologies. I think that this new way of conducting things is here to stay, although there is something lacking. That is, we have sessions, but we have no corridors to intertwine with the others, to connect, etc. This is an important part of all conferences and gatherings, etc. So we need to go back to presential events, but meanwhile we have to deal with this kind of technical difficulties. I am see that we are almost at the time that we have to give.
Ambassador Florenzo? Sorry to bother you. You can, if you wish, you can do a last round of remarks by our participants, as we had difficulties.
Okay. They're telling me that we still have a few minutes to go. So I would maybe ask any one of you to make in a few seconds, not minutes, your remarks. Miriam Khalaf, how would you finish? How would you deliver your message in a nutshell?
I will try to be as brief as possible, but I would like to remind everyone, especially that our session was on gender equality, that women and girls have been disproportionately affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, and that we need to ensure, again, I would just repeat, that we need to ensure that women's rights and gender equality are integrated in every aspect of our programming, and particularly under the current situation and the current pandemic, and which is already due to pre-existing unequal treatment and violation of their rights. And thank you so much.
Okay, so thank you very much. Yes, you are absolutely right. We have to overcome this historical discrimination that we have had against women, and so we lose half of our possibility if we do not count on the capacities of women. I'm convinced that in many fields, it's always my experience, women are even much better at doing things that we men are. And you are a good proof of that. And so, Guillaume, how would you send your final message? No, we cannot hear you. I'm sorry. Okay, now go ahead. Go ahead. Try to speak, please. No. Well, we go back to our main keynote speaker, Ms. Awed Bouchamawi. Okay, so you have led our exercise, showing us how much civil society can really bring about not only diffused changes, but really very visible changes, so important for a country as to have a new constitution, a new political system, etc. So this is an extraordinary experience. Do you think that in other fields, as for example more applied, as for example in climate change or women affairs, we will be able in the Euro-Mediterranean area to win more Nobel Prizes, as you have done? Do you expect that we will overcome the situation in all these other aspects as you have done with the political system in Tunisia?
We have to think about this Nobel Prize for the effort of women, because thanks to women, thanks to the emancipation of women, we were like we are now today. Because you know, women, they were on the street. Women, they are behind their families. They are present everywhere in political and economic, and but the situation is not so good in the other countries. What we have is how we can be together and to help other women to ask for their rights, and maybe to convince politicians to debate this problem of gender equality, of women rights. The last thing is maybe about the climate change. I think we are not aware so much about the situation, and what we do need to be more, to have more information, to communicate more, and to teach people how the importance of this climate change, because till now many people, particularly our politicians, they are not aware about this crucial problem, which is the climate change. Maybe we should be involved in G20, in G7. We should be involved as citizens from this the developed world, and to listen and to learn, and maybe to give some examples.
So thank you very much. Guillaume, maybe we can try again, because it is essential what you are doing, and to give your final message, because education is at the basis of all our possibilities. And if you really can give a second chance to everybody, no matter how old we are, we will try to do it again better than we did.
Do you hear me now?
Yes, we do.
Wonderful. And sorry for the problem before. Just to finish, we're looking for systemic change, building partnerships. That's the clue. And because this is not a matter of countries, it's a matter, the challenges doesn't know borders. The Mediterranean is a unique area, and we really face similar challenges. And even if digital tools works sometimes, mobility and cultural exchanges are key, as you just said. We need a dialogue between the different stakeholders. We need to build international partnership to make and build legitimacy, and in order to help different areas to take benefit of the experience of the others. And I would just finish to say, we don't need to help these people only to be nice to them. We need to help them because we need them, because they are part of the key of the future. The women, the young people, we need to help them to help us, because we need their support, we need their action, we need their vision.
So thank you very much, Guillaume, and thank you to everybody. Well, we are we are our time is finished. We have to give way to the continuation for the final words of the Assistant Secretary General, Marisa Ferrugia. But I would say that it appears from the discussion that we had to make a great effort. We have to get an effort, but we have the tools to do that. We have the civil society that has proved to be very active and well. After so many years, 25 years since the beginning of the Barcelona process, we see that the civil society is more active than ever. And that's my first conclusion. And the second one is that the civil society is much better prepared than it was before, because we have seen that we are now acting as civil society in a very concrete areas, not just a general knowledge, a general advocacy for making things better, but we know that we are much better than we were 25 years back in advocacy and acting for constitutional building, for climate change treatment, for the equality of genders, for social inclusion in all these projects on education and so many others. So we see that we have plenty of possibilities, and finally it comes out from the discussions the central role that can be played by the Union for the Mediterranean in this Euro-Mediterranean space. The outcome of it is that compared at the beginning, now we have a permanent secretariat that's undertaking many activities and promoting the activities of others, not just trying to do things by itself, but trying to foster the activity of a myriad of organizations, public and private, and therefore we encourage, in the name of all of you, the Secretariat of the Union for the Mediterranean to continue with its task and to bring about the possibilities for this new period. We know that in a few days, new Euromed Ministerial Union for the Mediterranean Ministerials will take place to commemorate the 25th anniversary. And I would like the General Secretariat to convey the message of all participants in this civil forum, to convey the message to the national governments, to the European Union, to the Arab League, to the international organizations, so that they take advantage of this huge array of organizations of all kinds, of all fields of activity, because we are ready to cooperate in this enormous effort to bring about these goals that we established already 25 years back, to build around the Mediterranean this area of peace and stability, this area of shared economic progress, and this area of intercultural dialogue and understanding with all these new ingredients that we know that we have to face now with the climate change that's threatening so many things, and with the inequalities that have been growing among genders, the enormous challenge of social exclusion that's taking place, that we have to fight it back. So I encourage very much, and I thank the Secretariat for the Union for the Mediterranean, as you have been expressing. And now we will go for the closing this panel too, thanking you all for your participation, and we'll go for the closing remarks by the Deputy Secretary General for Social and Civil Affairs of the Union for the Mediterranean, Marisa Ferrugia. So thank you very much to all of you for your participation. And of course, thank you very much to the audience.
Excellencies, dear partners and project promoters, dear participants, many valid questions, ideas, and contributions have been raised or exchanged. Many sound recommendations have come on the table during the last 2 days. They provided us with important markers on the questions we ask ourselves. Are we doing the right thing? What can we do better? How do we build stronger partnerships between civil society, governments, and donors? These and other are key questions that help to move forward on the UfM agenda as we commemorate the 25th anniversary of the Barcelona process. Your participation has given us the opportunity to listen to your ideas and appreciate more your projects and work involved. Listening is key to a real dialogue, and a real dialogue with civil society and among civil society actors is pivotal to bringing closer the people of the Euro-Mediterranean. We witnessed in our discussion that the mechanism for dialogue between various actors led to a myriad of successful projects and initiatives in our region. These great projects proved to be crucial and a huge benefit to our citizens on a regional level. Equally important is the need for cross-fertilization within the region and across regions. This is how important lessons are learned, where cultural and religious barriers are crashed and peace and stability are built. The torch that was lit 25 years ago in Barcelona Declaration regarding the role of the civil society has grown stronger. Despite the numerous regional challenges that threaten the stability and prosperity of the area, recently exacerbated with the pandemic, civil society actors developed into resilient and innovative, better organized bodies. The exhibition of the 25 projects showed us that when the social fabric is fractured or calls for improvement, the civil society steps in with the local communities and confidently re-engages to restructure. The process requires the engagement of the private businesses, social partners, and academia, together with the support of the government and international organizations. Since its inception, the UfM has always stood by and worked hand in hand with the civil society. This bondage will be further strengthened. Guided by the values of the Barcelona process, the rapprochement between people through a social, cultural, and human partnership, civil society organizations have succeeded to enter all fields of activity, carry out projects, launch dialogues, organize symposia, and build networks. It is with great satisfaction to witness so many success stories and outstanding projects in this event. The convening of the civil society event would have not been successful without the participation of all of you. We would like to sincerely thank the European Commission, ENI CBC Med, the North-South Center of the Council of Europe, the Aniline Foundation, IECD, and IEMed for their dedication, support, and cooperation in the organization of the forum and the preparation of the sessions. We would like to express our deep gratitude for all the projects that were showcased in our virtual exhibition that truly enriched the meeting, as well as the promoters for their collaboration and enthusiasm. I conclude by thanking you all for the great insights shared and for your active and valuable participation in the Regional Forum Civil Society segment. Your contributions have proved priceless inputs to the ideas we want to develop with you and for the dialogue we seek to expand. The Union for the Mediterranean will continue supporting civil society organizations for the realization of goals, initiatives, or projects that lead to a more stable, secure, and prosperous Euro-Mediterranean region. Thank you.
you.